Chapter 38:29. Mr. Liu and the 20 over God Kings have been able to fend off the 3,000 attacks because of the shield they had formed. However, God King Rahu had taken extremely great risk. He had destroyed the shield of light with a single strike and killed 5 God Kings. Their formation had been disrupted, and their divine powers were in a mess. They could not reform their formation in a short time. The left and right protectors and a few elders took this opportunity to lead the 3,000 soldiers in a ferocious attack. Mr. Liu tried his best to defend himself and even used his body to block the attacks to reduce the pressure on his companions. As a result, he was severely injured and his body was covered in blood. However, it was futile. The 22 God Kings did not have the support of their formation. They were in a mess and fled in panic. The number of casualties increased exponentially. In a flash, another 4 God Kings were killed. Even the 12 God Kings, including Mr. Liu, were severely injured. They were in a precarious situation. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with fear and uneasiness, shrouded in a haze of despair. Has the Dragon Emperor not realized that we have been ambushed? Why hasn't he come to our rescue? There are more than 3,000 of them, and Luo Ho is a peak God King. How can we hold him off? We are doomed. The heavens want us dead. We will all die here in half an hour. We won't even have the chance to escape. Everybody looked around at the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance and the super array with a radius of tens of thousands of square kilometers. The desperation in their hearts surged like a flood. At this moment, waves of divine power surged from outside the super formation. Deafening shouts could be heard. Kill! Kill all the myriad Demon Alliance bastards. Despicable lackeys of the 10,000 Demon Alliance die. Mr. Liu and the rest are trapped in the formation. Everyone, attack the formation and save them. Don't panic. Maintain the formation and form the 9 Palace Meteor Battle Formation. Without a doubt, the 2,000 Sir Gods and 40 Lower God Kings that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had released had finally arrived. Before they arrived at the Golden Dragon Mountain, they knew that Mr. Liu and 30 God Kings had been ambushed by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Therefore, when they saw a super formation with a radius of 90,000 miles that sealed off the entire Golden Dragon Mountain range, they were not shocked or surprised. When they arrived near the formation, they immediately spread out and formed the 9 Palace Meteor Battle Formation in the sky. The 2,000-plus godly lords and 40-plus godly kings came from more than 10 different factions. They were not familiar with one another, so there was no tacit understanding between them. Therefore, when they formed a battle formation to attack together, they couldn't use a battle formation that was too profound. He could only use the 9 Palace Meteor Formation, which was widely known and relatively common. Even if the power of the battle formation was not strong enough, it might not be able to unleash the power of more than 2,000 Sir Gods. At the very least, they would be able to work together and nothing would go wrong. Soon, over 40 God Kings and over 2,000 God Monarchs formed a battle formation and began to cast spells to attack the formation. The sky was filled with flying stars, saber lights, and sword shadows. They poured down like a torrential flood, crashing into the super formation one after another. Pung pung pung. A deafening muffled sound erupted, reverberating endlessly between heaven and earth. The super formation that covered 90,000 miles shook violently from the bombardment. Within the formation, Mr. Liu and the 17 God Kings were in despair. Suddenly, they heard the battle cries outside the formation and felt the turbulent divine power ripples. They were instantly invigorated. Everyone's despairing and gloomy eyes glowed with a strong desire to survive, revealing a look of pleasant surprise. This is great. His Majesty the Dragon Emperor has finally realized that he has fallen into our trap and sent people to save us. Although His Majesty the Dragon Emperor hasn't come, he will definitely kill Long Tian. The 3,000 soldiers are attacking the formation from the outside. If we work together with them, we will definitely be able to break out of the encirclement. Everyone, pull yourself together. We will work together to break out of the formation and break out. In the blink of an eye, Mr. Lu and the 17 God Kings were in high spirits. They hurriedly formed a battle formation and slowly broke out of the encirclement. As for the 3,000 soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance, they also felt the pressure. Many God Kings frowned, their faces grim. Even though they attacked with all their might, it was difficult for them to kill Mr. Lu and the 17 God Kings. Outside the formation, more than 2,000 Sir Gods and God Kings were attacking the formation with all their might. At this moment, the Demon Alliance soldiers were being attacked from both sides. They were in a precarious situation. Of course, Mr. Lu and the others could not break out of the encirclement in a short time. The 2,000 people outside the formation also could not break out of this super formation in a short time. After all, this chain formation was designed and set up by Ji Tianqing. Even if it was just a mid-king grade formation, it was not something that could be broken by just anyone. The situation on the battlefield immediately became delicate. The left and right protectors and a few elders attacked Mr. Lu and the others with all their might. They did not forget to ask God King Luoho through voice transmission. Alliance leader, there are 12 high king grade divine artifacts among the 18 God Kings. They are working together to form a formation and desperately trying to break out of the encirclement. If we can't kill him, I'm afraid the formation will be broken. Alliance leader, we have already followed the plan. Half of the soldiers are attacking the 18 God Kings. The other half is supporting the formation together to fend off the attacks of the experts outside. If we can't end this quickly, we will be attacked from both sides. We will be in a passive position. God King Luoho had used Devour Heaven, Annihilation earlier, and had suffered considerable damage. He had been recuperating earlier. When he heard the protectors and elders asking for help, he hurriedly stopped recuperating. The situation on the battlefield was clear at a glance. He only frowned and pondered for a moment before making a prompt decision. Continue to attack the 18 God Kings. Try to kill as many as possible. I will go outside the formation and personally kill the soldiers of the mysterious Grotto Heaven. With that, God King Luoho's figure disappeared as he quietly flew out of the ceiling formation. Hu Xinyue and a few elders had wanted to go outside the formation with him to kill the enemies. However, the situation was tense. Without the Alliance leader's orders, they did not dare to make a decision on their own. They could only carry out the orders. God King Luoho was going alone to kill more than 2,000 experts and God Kings outside the formation. It seemed very dangerous. However, in reality, he was a peak God King. Those lower God Kings and godly lords could not trap him at all. If he acted alone, he would be more discreet and nimble. The facts proved that God King Luoho's decision was very wise. More than 2,000 godly lords and more than 40 God Kings were attacking the ceiling formation with all their might in the 9 Palaces meteor formation. Suddenly, God King Luoho teleported to the center of the battle formation. He transformed into a 10,000-foot-long heavenly dragon that shone with resplendent golden light as he rampaged through the battle formation. Not only did he release towering divine flames, pillars of light, and sharp blades, he also released a 5-colored poison mist that blotted out the sky. Countless godly lord experts were smashed to pieces by him. They were burned to ashes by the divine flames or blasted to bits by the pillars of light and sharp blades. Even more people were corroded by the 5-colored poison mist. They immediately bled from all orifices as their bodies rotted to ashes. Chapter 38:30. Divine King Luoho followed Dragon Emperor Feng Tian and cultivated the way of the heavenly dragon his entire life. His situation was very similar to Ji Tianqing's. Although he did not have the true bloodline of the heavenly dragon, he could use the various skills of the heavenly dragon tribe. Of course, Ji Tianqing's understanding of the way of the heavenly dragon was much deeper than his. That was why he could transform into a dragon's body and make everyone in the dragon realm think that he was a dragon. And Divine King Luoho was most proficient in the way of poison. After his lifetime of research and hard work, the way of poison was no longer limited to the crude methods of using physical objects or divine power to contain poison. He had already cultivated the way of poison, and the formless way of poison contained poison. In fact, he could even use his divine soul power and consciousness to unleash deadly poison. At Divine King Luoho's level, he only needed a thought to kill many divine lords. He only needed a wisp of divine thought to poison divine king experts. What kind of terrifying method was this? He transformed into a heavenly dragon and wreaked havoc in the battle formation of more than 2,000 divine lords. He easily killed more than 100 divine lords. More than 200 divine lords also turned to ashes under the bombardment of divine fire, light pillars, and sharp blades. As for the rapidly spreading five-colored poisonous fog that blotted out the sky, it caused more than 600 divine lords to be corroded. The powerful poison corroded the bodies of many divine lords into a pool of blood. The formless divine thought poison corroded the souls of many divine lords, causing their consciousness to blur and collapse. Soon, they fell unconscious. In just a few breaths, the nine-palace meteor battle formation was shattered and many divine lords died. Even a few of the lower divine kings were unlucky. They were poisoned and lost their ability to fight. Everyone roared in horror, running away in a panic. They no longer cared about attacking the sealing formation. With that, the pressure on the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers in the formation was greatly reduced. They attacked Mr. Lu and the others with all their might. Mr. Lu and the 17 divine kings were struggling to break out of the encirclement. They wanted to reach the edge of the sealing formation. After being attacked by the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers, they could no longer advance. Soon, more casualties appeared. It looked like their pincer attack was about to be defeated by Divine King Luoho. At the critical moment, the 40 over low-level god kings outside the Grand Formation actually maintained their calm and steadied their footing. They shouted loudly and hoarsely as they gave their orders. Finally, they managed to calm the 1,000 or so Sir Gods who were lucky enough to survive. And then, they hurriedly went into battle formation, joining forces to defend against God King Raha's attacks. Moreover, everyone joined forces to cast a forbidden technique and fiercely bombarded the sealing formation. They knew very well that if they couldn't break through the sealing formation and save Mr. Lu and the other deity kings, they would all die here. Only by joining forces with Master Lu and the others could they have a chance of survival. The situation immediately stabilized. Even though God King Luoho used the same trick, he did not achieve great results. He only managed to kill dozens of divine lords. He furrowed his brows anxiously as he observed the battle formation of more than 1,000 Sir Gods. He was looking for a weakness and an opportunity to attack. Many godly monarchs led godly lord experts in a frenzy to attack the sealing array several times, but they were unable to breach it. Thus, after weighing the pros and cons, the 12 god kings decided to sacrifice themselves. They cast a forbidden technique, burning their bodies and godheads to form an annihilation spear that could destroy everything. Kaboom! The 3,000-meter-long, pitch-black spear shadow fiercely slammed into the grand sealing formation with devastating power. With an earth-shattering explosion, a huge hole was blasted through the five-colored light barrier. Fragments of divine light flew everywhere. The sealing formation had been breached. The 32 godly monarchs and 1,000 Sir Gods outside the formation burst into cheers. They looked relieved. Although they had suffered heavy casualties, they had achieved their goal. Those who were lucky enough to survive saw hope. Within the formation, Mr. Lu and the 15 godly monarchs, who were in despair, suddenly saw the formation being breached. Their desire to survive was ignited. Their blood boiled as their morale soared. They unleashed the last of their potential and charged towards the opening in the formation. For a moment, the soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance could not hold them back. They really broke out of the encirclement. Swoosh! Swoosh! 20 breaths later, Mr. Lu and the others paid a great price to pass through the opening in the formation and escape from the sealing formation. Although only 14 of them were left alive, they were all severely injured and weak. They had escaped the trap of the Myriad Demon Alliance and soon met up with the 1,000 Ser gods. As a result, the Xuanji Grotto now had 46 godly monarchs and 1,500 Ser gods. With such a force, as long as they were deployed and used properly, they might be able to fight the myriad demon alliance. Retreat. Let's leave this place first. We'll discuss further. After Mr. Lu and the 13 godly monarchs met up with the 1,000 Ser gods, they shouted the order loudly. The 1,000 Ser gods did not hesitate. They quickly followed Mr. Lu and the others and fled into the depths of the grotto as fast as they could. Only by leaving the ruins of the Golden Dragon Mountain and the area that was full of traps could they fight at ease. At the same time, while they were retreating, Mr. Lu and the dozen godly monarchs were also discussing countermeasures. Did the Dragon Emperor send you here as reinforcements? Yes. What's the situation with the Dragon Emperor? Has he also fallen into the trap and been besieged? No. Long Tian is the only one who can deal with His Majesty. That's great. With the Dragon Emperor's strength and means, he'll kill Long Tian quickly and come back to help us. By then, we'll be able to turn the tables. So, we have to pull ourselves together and join forces to resist the attack of the Myriad Demon Alliance. If we can resist for a few more breaths, our chances of winning will increase. As Mr. Lu led the group to escape, he encouraged and comforted them as he formulated the next plan. The godly monarchs and Ser gods immediately had a backbone and calmed down a lot. On the other hand, when Mr. Lu and the others escaped from the ceiling formation, the left and right protectors and a few elders led more than 3,000 soldiers and started a fierce pursuit. Although they were full of killing intent and high morale, the pursuit formation was not disrupted. Luoho Divine King was at the front and followed closely behind the 1,000 Ser gods. He kept attacking and assassinating along the way to slow down the escape of the others. The 3,000 members of the Myriad Demon Alliance quickly caught up with them and began to fight at close quarters. Seeing that the escape team was being delayed, Mr. Lu decisively ordered them to stop running. If they continued to run, they would definitely be nibbled away by the Myriad Demon Alliance. Under the command of Mr. Lu and the other godly monarchs, the 1,000 Ser gods formed a battle formation and resisted the siege of the Myriad Demon Alliance. Everyone remembered Mr. Lu's order. They did not want to kill the enemy and gain merits. They only wanted to form the strongest defensive formation and delay the enemy for as long as possible. Chapter 38-31. In the vast and boundless void space, Ji Tianxing and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had already exchanged thousands of blows, and the battlefield had shifted tens of thousands of miles away. There was nothing in the void space, and no matter how strong the shock waves from their battle were, nothing could be destroyed. However, countless fragments of divine light and shock waves were still scattered in the void space, spreading outwards like ripples. The void space where Ji Tianxing and the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were fighting was filled with flickering divine light, and nomological patterns crisscrossed like a fishing net. Around the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor were two streaks of 7-colored Taoist rhymes, and they were faintly discernible like clouds. Hundreds of nomological patterns manifested images of mountains and rivers, the sun, moon, and stars, and the vicissitudes of life. If an ordinary god king were to spectate the battle nearby, he would definitely benefit greatly, and his strength would increase tremendously. At this point in the battle, the two of them had already gone past the stage of testing each other's strength. Not only did they use their full strength, but they also took out their supreme-grade, king-grade divine artifacts. Ji Tianxing wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven, and a mountain-sized primordial chaos bell hovered above his head. He controlled the primordial chaos bell with his mind, either blocking the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's attacks or neutralizing the Taoist rhymes released by the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. At the same time, he released his divine aura to suppress the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, restricting his movements and weakening his strength. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor also took out his natal divine artifact, the supreme grade, king grade heaven cleaving axe. The axe was dark gold in color, and the handle was curved like a golden dragon. The axe head was flat and wide, and the back of the axe was a lifelike dragon head. This heaven-cleaving axe originated from ancient times, and it was said that it was transformed from a certain golden dragon magnate, and it possessed divine aura and spirituality. While the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor wielded the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and fought with Ji Tianxing, he used his mind to control the heaven-cleaving axe to hover around the battlefield. The heaven-cleaving axe could not only block Ji Tianxing's attacks, neutralize his sword techniques and various mystiques, but it could also constantly attack him, tiring him out. Both of their strengths were about the same, and the primordial chaos bell and the heaven-cleaving axe were equally powerful. They often canceled each other out, and neither of them had the upper hand. Therefore, the battle between Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not end anytime soon. If nothing unexpected happened, the two of them would probably still have to compete in the foundation of their divine power to see whose foundation was more robust. In this aspect, Ji Tianxing was no match for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Although his talent was extraordinary, his cultivation time in this life was too short, less than 200 years. Moreover, he was only at the 8th level of the Divine King realm. He had not even reached the 9th level. If he really returned to the peak and became a peak Divine King, then this battle would have ended long ago. Just as Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were locked in a fierce battle. In the depths of the void, a pair of clear and deep eyes were watching their every move. Those eyes contained wisdom, confidence, and dignity, as well as endless vicissitudes of life. Only an expert who had been in a high position for a long time could have such a pair of eyes. It was a pity that the owner of those eyes was a 7-foot-tall middle-aged man with an oily face. That's right, this was a middle-aged man with a big belly. One look, and you could tell that he was rich and heartless. He had a ruddy and plump face, a big sunken nose, and a funny mustache. He wore a sapphire blue long robe and a jeweled hat. His 10 fingers were adorned with all kinds of rings, divine jade, and emerald. His appearance was no different from the profiteers of the mortal world. At this moment, he was in a black divine warship, lying on a luxurious divine jade recliner. There was a jade table in front of him, with divine tea and all kinds of divine fruits on it. The blue-robed profiteer leaned on the recliner in an unrestrained manner. He held an exquisite jade flask in one hand and took a sip of wine from time to time. His other hand was twirling divine fruits and eating them one after another. He had an intoxicated expression on his face. However, his eyes were clear and bright. He was focused on the two people who were fighting a fierce battle hundreds of thousands of miles away. No one knew that he had been guarding the peak of Sky, Crane Mountain, all this while. When the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor led a large group of God Kings to attack the great formation of 9 bends of Heaven River, he hid at the side and watched. When the great formation of 9 bends of Heaven River was broken and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the others rushed into the Xuanji Utopia, he followed them silently. He had been secretly following Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. When the two of them rushed into the void to fight, he naturally followed them. No matter how Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor fought, or how they moved the battlefield, he always maintained a distance of 120,000 miles and hid in the dark to watch the battle. And all this had not been discovered by anyone until now. Not only did ordinary God Kings not discover him, but even Ji Tianxing and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not notice him. As time passed, the blue-robed profiteer watched the battle for a while longer. He could not help but reveal a gratified smile. He smiled and muttered to himself, "This little rascal. His appearance has not changed much from before. However, his temperament has changed a lot. It's like he's a completely different person. But that's good too. At least he doesn't pretend to be mature and cold all the time. He's young, so he should act like a young man. It's good to be a little mischievous. Looks like he's had a good time in the divine world. Not only does he have a Tao companion and a son, but even his personality has changed. Sigh, it's a pity that old man Tian Long died early. I can't see him anymore." The blue-robed profiteer was gratified and sighed. He even shook his head subconsciously. However, after watching for a while longer, he gradually felt that it was not interesting anymore. He could not help but feel a little regretful. Sigh. Although the little rascal's cultivation is more profound and he has mastered more mystiques, he's still too young. He's not as profound as the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's cultivation. If the battle continues like this, I'm afraid the victor will not be decided even after a day and a night. If it really drags on for 3 days, I'm afraid the loser will still be him. That Ophiuchus, why can't he deal with a bunch of small fries after so long? As he muttered to himself, the blue-robed profiteer split a strand of his consciousness to check on the battle in the Xuanji Utopia. Before leaving the Xuanji Utopia, he left a clone in the Xuanji Utopia to observe the battle in the dark and to prevent any unexpected situations. That incarnation was a man of the Dragon Clan who was more than 10 feet tall. He was tall and mighty. He wore a pitch-black dragon scale armor. He had a square face and a wide nose. He had a pair of thick eyebrows and big, bright eyes. He was majestic, domineering, and had an iron-blooded, murderous aura. He was like the general of the Dragon Clan, the commander of the Dragon Riders. Before this, the blue-robed profiteer had not made any moves. This clone of his had been hiding underground, concealing all of its aura so that no one could detect it. Now that he had made a move, this Dragon General clone moved quietly underground, quickly approaching the battlefield. Not long after, the Dragon General clone arrived near the battlefield. He silently flew up into the sky, hiding high up in the sky, overlooking the entire battlefield. He saw that Master Lu and more than 1,000 godly lords were surrounded by more than 3,000 soldiers from the Myriad Demon Alliance. They were being attacked from all sides. The two sides fought fiercely. There were people being killed at every moment. They fell into pools of blood or turned into a rain of flesh and blood. Chapter 38-32. Overall, Master Lu and the others were still at a disadvantage and were in a precarious situation. More than 1,000 of them joined forces to form a battle formation, but they were powerless to fight back. They could only desperately resist the attacks of the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers. Even so, their casualties were increasing and their numbers were decreasing rapidly. Although the 3,000 soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance also suffered casualties, they were few in number and did not affect the overall situation. Victory was in their hands, and they were not in a hurry at all. They attacked methodically. Luoho Supreme Being stood outside the battle formation and traversed the battlefield freely. He constantly looked for opportunities to attack and kill groups of godly lords. Although the situation was good and the 10,000 Demon Alliance was steadily moving towards victory. However, after secretly observing for a while, the blue-robed profiteer's clone was still somewhat dissatisfied and could not help but shake his head. That Ophiuchus is a bit lacking in martial arts, and he's not ruthless and decisive enough. If this continues, will we really have to fight for 3 days and 3 nights? Long John's clone frowned and thought for a while. A sly smile appeared on his face as he thought to himself, although I can't kill the Golden Dragon Emperor because of the Heavenly Tao Oath, I can still do some small things. It shouldn't be a problem for me to create a little accident, right? As Long John's clone thought, he subconsciously looked up at the sky as if he wanted to get an answer from the Heavenly Tao. However, the Heavenly Tao was destined to not respond to his test. There was still no response. Long John's clone quickly moved. He secretly manipulated the laws and flicked his finger toward the center of the battlefield. Whoosh! The invisible divine pattern of the laws silently passed through the defensive light shield formed by Master Lu and the godly lords and landed in the crowd. In the next moment, the ground within a 100-mile radius suddenly collapsed. Endless divine flames and lava spewed out of the ground like a volcanic eruption. Boom! Boom, boom, boom. More than 40 godly lords and more than 1,000 godly lords were only focused on defending against the 10,000 Demon Alliance's attacks. They did not guard against such an accident happening behind them and below them. when a deafening explosion erupted and hundreds of lava pillars erupted. The divine flames that were as turbulent as the tide instantly engulfed hundreds of Ser-gods. Many godly lords were burned to ashes by the lava pillars, and even more were burned to ashes by the divine flames. The battle formation within a radius of 100 miles was instantly blasted with several gaps. It became fragmented and could not be sustained. On the battlefield, deafening exclamations, screams, and wails of dying people burst out. At least 700 people were burned to ashes on the spot. Among the god monarchs who died on the spot, more than 600 of them were subordinates of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The other 100 or so people were soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. It couldn't be helped. Both sides were very close to each other on the battlefield. The magma pillars and divine flames that filled the sky attacked indiscriminately. Of course, they would not differentiate between friend and foe. This sudden accident not only shocked Mr. Lu and the 1,000 Divine Emperors, but also shocked them. Even the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance were shocked, too. Wariness appeared on their faces. The left and right protectors and a few elders hurriedly commanded the more than 3,000 soldiers to change their formation and try their best to stay away from the area of the lava eruption. The same thought flashed through the minds of countless people, and the same question popped up. Why would such an accident happen in such a peaceful place? Why would there be magma and volcanoes under the Xuanji Grotto? What is going on? Is this a sudden accident, or is it a deliberate attack? If there is a sneak attack, who could it be? Why would they attack indiscriminately? Everyone could not understand and felt that it was very strange. Only Divine King Luoho frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, he realized something and his expression changed. Didn't he say that he would not interfere? Why would he personally attack the subordinates of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor? Moreover, he did not differentiate between friend and foe and even kill my subordinates? Divine King Luoho was shocked and confused at the same time. However, after thinking carefully, he guessed the meaning behind it. He must think that my progress is too slow and did not eliminate these people as soon as possible. Could it be that the young master is in danger and needs my assistance as soon as possible? Divine King Luoho became anxious as he thought of this. He hurriedly ordered the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance to pursue the enemy. This time, he did not advance slowly and steadily. Instead, he attacked at all costs and tried to kill Mr. Lu and the others as quickly as possible. This action was immediately effective. Mr. Lu and the thousands of godly emperors under his command were in a state of panic. They could not form a battle formation and had to desperately escape from the area of the volcanic eruption. They were in a mess. More than 3,000 soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, on the other hand, unleashed their greatest strength and charged forward unstoppably. Although this was unreliable and would increase the casualties of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. However, this unstoppable momentum dealt a heavy blow to the morale of the thousands of godly emperors. Even though Mr. Lu and the other divine kings tried their best to calm and order the godly emperors to form a battle formation, their efforts were ineffective. But the effect was minuscule. The number of Divine Lord experts was decreasing at an extremely fast rate. High in the sky, the invisible Long John's clone could not help but smile when he saw the reaction of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Old Ophiuchus is quite smart. He did not go senile and immediately understood my intentions. After all, I have already attacked once. Even if I break the rules, I don't mind doing it one more time, right? Long John's clone muttered to himself. A playful smile flashed across his eyes. He used his divine power again and flicked his finger at Mr. Lu and the others on the battlefield. Boom! Bang! 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 The battlefield had not yet calmed down. It was still shrouded in lava and divine flames. Right at this moment, along with a few loud and muffled booms, over 1,000 lava pillars burst out from the ground, and even more terrifying divine flames gushed out from them. The thousands of godly emperors who were already in a panic and had nowhere to run were instantly engulfed by the crimson divine flames. More than 1,000 pillars of lava exploded in the crowd, turning hundreds of divine lords into dregs. Of course, this time, the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance fought bravely and were closer to the enemy. More people were unlucky. Of the 800 people who were blown into smithereens on the spot, more than 200 belonged to the myriad Demon Alliance. The other 600 godly emperors were the subordinates of the Golden Source Dragon Emperor. When the deafening explosions stopped and the lava and flames that covered the sky dissipated, the battlefield was a mess. It was too horrible to look at. Mr. Lu and the other divine kings survived. The thousands of godly emperors were reduced to about 400. Moreover, the 400 survivors were all heavily injured and weak. They were in a sorry state. Such an outcome meant that they had lost their momentum and were about to be killed. Chapter 38-33. Mr. Lu and the rest were doomed to die. Under the siege of the 3,000 Demon Alliance soldiers and Luoho's supreme being's all-out attack, the 400 godly emperors were quickly wiped out. Only 30 godly kings were left. They struggled to hold on as they escaped into the depths of the grotto heaven. Mr. Lu knew that they had lost. They had lost miserably, and there was no turning back. What he needed to do now was to save everyone's strength so that they could meet up with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Therefore, he used his divine consciousness to send an order to the 30 godly kings around him. Everyone, stop fighting the Demon Alliance. Try to save your strength. We will join forces and form the Star Shuttle Battle Formation. We will try our best to break free from the encirclement of the Demon Alliance and meet up with the Dragon Emperor. Although we lost miserably in this battle, and it was a little baffling, but if we meet up with the Dragon Emperor, we still have a chance to turn the tables. Mr. Lu's words echoed everyone's thoughts. They were godly kings, not the 1,000 godly emperors who had died. Of course, they did not believe that there would be lava and volcanoes under the Xuanji grotto heaven. Everyone muttered in their hearts. This was too strange. Someone must have attacked them secretly. However, Mr. Lu did not hide anything. He voiced out everyone's doubts and pointed out a direction. Everyone was no longer confused. They gathered themselves and formed the Star Shuttle Battle Formation together. They followed Mr. Lu to break out of the encirclement. But how could the encirclement of the 3,000 Demon Alliance soldiers be so easy to break out of? Moreover, there was Luoho's supreme being, a peak godly king. The battle between the two sides was extremely fierce. Divine light danced in the sky. Saber light and sword shadows covered the sky. Loud sounds were incessant. The 30 godly kings used their last bit of strength, but still could not break out of the encirclement. Instead, 24 of them were killed. The remaining 9 high-level godly kings and Mr. Lu were also severely injured. They were at the end of their rope. Seeing Luoho's supreme being, the left and right protectors, and the many elders leading dozens of godly kings, everyone was in despair. They knew that they could not escape. There was no hope of survival. They placed all their hopes on Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu, we can't escape. We don't have the strength to fight anymore. Mr. Lu, only you have a chance to escape and return to the Dragon Emperor. We're bound to die here. In that case, we might as well work together to fight for Master Lu's survival. Mr. Lu, you must survive. Remember to tell His Majesty the Dragon Emperor that he must avenge us. The 9 high-grade God Kings, who were covered in wounds, looked at Master Lu with hope in their eyes and told him to take care of himself through telepathy. After that, the 9 high-level Divine Kings used a forbidden secret technique at the same time. They burned their godheads and blood souls and erupted with their last bit of power. Master Lu was surrounded by the 9 king-level weapons. He was protected by the last of the 9 immortal kings' power. It was as if he was in a sea of fire. He shouted loudly, persuading the 9 divine kings to stop casting the spell. However, the situation had already exceeded everyone's control. Those 9 high-level divine kings were already determined to die, and they were resolutely unwilling to stop. With their final hopes and prayers, they turned into ashes in the raging flames, releasing the most terrifying divine power. Swoosh! In the next moment, Endless blood-red flames enveloped the 9 immortal artifacts and Master Lu. They streaked across the sky like meteors and blasted into the depths of the Xuanji Grotto. The soldiers of the myriad demon alliance who were in the way were instantly blasted into pieces by the meteors. They turned into ashes in the blood-red flames that filled the sky. The encirclement of the myriad demon alliance was broken. More than 100 godly lords and 5 immortal kings were killed on the spot. The huge blood-red meteor also shot out of the encirclement like an aurora and disappeared into the horizon. Such a shocking scene brought a great shock to the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Many of them were dumbfounded. Even immortal King Luoho did not expect that the enemy would choose to end the battle in such a way. When he came back to his senses and prepared to suppress them, it was already too late. Fortunately, Master Lu was the only one who managed to escape. The soldiers under the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were all wiped out. The left and right protectors and a few elders came back to their senses. They hurriedly shouted and led the soldiers into the depths of the grotto. They wanted to continue chasing after Master Lu. However, immortal King Luoho waved his hand to stop them. "Stop! Do not pursue. Everyone, rest and recuperate. Clean up the battlefield and treat the injured." Although many people did not understand immortal King Luoho's decision, all the soldiers obeyed his orders. Nearly 3,000 people put away their weapons and hurriedly circulated their energy to regulate their breathing, treat their injuries, or treat their injured comrades. Under the arrangements of the Hall Masters and Division Masters, a group of soldiers went to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war and the corpses of the myriad Demon Alliance soldiers. The left and right protectors, a few elders, and the heavenly kings all flew to immortal King Luoho and asked him about their next course of action. Immortal King Luoho said calmly, "We have already won this battle. Everyone has worked hard. Now, our only enemies are Master Lu and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. A battle of this level is no longer something that ordinary members of the Alliance can participate in. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th elders, you all stay here and lead everyone to recuperate and wait for orders. The rest of you, if you still have the strength to fight, follow me. We will go and support the young master." Everyone agreed with his orders and immediately got to work. The 4 elders stayed behind to preside over the situation and lead the soldiers to recuperate. The other 3 elders, the 5 heavenly kings, and the left and right protectors all followed immortal King Luoho into the depths of the grotto heaven. These 10 people were all immortal kings. Only with such strength could they hunt down Master Lu and besiege the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! The 10 people streaked across the sky like streaks of light and quickly arrived at the depths of the grotto heaven. Along the way, everyone sensed the aura of Master Lu's divine power, but they did not see any trace of him. After flying for 1,000,000 miles, they discovered that there were still a dozen or so wide spatial rifts in the sky above the mountains and precipitous ridges that were slowly healing. Immortal King Luoho used a mystic technique to investigate this area and confirmed that this was the battlefield of the young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Moreover, the young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had already moved the battlefield and entered the void. Immortal King Luoho led the other 9 people into the dark and cold void to search for Ji Tianxing. They had just entered the void, and before they could find any trace of Ji Tianxing, they saw a streak of crimson flames rapidly flying in front of them. The streak of crimson flames that resembled a meteor was Master Lu, who was wrapped in boundless divine power and protected by 9 divine artifacts. The power that the 9 immortal kings had sacrificed their lives for had helped him escape so far, and it had yet to dissipate. Immortal King Luoho and the others chased after Master Lu and flew into the depths of the void. The 2 parties chased for 1,000,000 miles, and the distance between them narrowed. When the 2 parties were 50,000 miles apart, Immortal King Luoho and the others finally saw an area of dazzling divine light 100,000 miles away. That was the battlefield of the young master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Chapter 38-34. Even though the battlefield was engulfed by the dazzling divine light, it was still a dazzling scene. The colorful divine light and the brilliance of the sacred tree covered Ji Tianxing and the golden origin dragon emperor. However, Luo Ho Supreme Being and the others could clearly sense the aura of their young master and the golden origin dragon emperor. Previously, they were still worried that their young master would not be a match for the golden origin dragon emperor. After such a long battle, their young master would have been injured. Now that they saw that their young master and the golden origin dragon emperor were evenly matched, they felt more at ease. From the looks of it, their young master was not injured and was not at a disadvantage. Swoosh! At this moment, the bloody flames that enveloped Master Lu finally dissipated. Under the protection of the 9 divine artifacts, Master Lu charged into the battlefield and controlled the divine artifacts to attack Ji Tianxing like cannonballs. Swoosh! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 9 divine weapons of different shapes and sizes all ignited with divine flames that shot up into the sky. They exploded with destructive power that enveloped Ji Tianxing's figure. Master Lu was very decisive and ruthless. In order to severely injure Ji Tianxing, he did not hesitate to detonate the 9 divine artifacts. Once the 9 king grade divine artifacts exploded, they would unleash a terrifying power that would not be weaker than a 9th heaven realm god king. Did the golden origin dragon emperor tell Master Lu to cooperate with him to attack Ji Tianxing? Or did Master Lu know that Ji Tianxing was the core of the myriad demon alliance, and that he would have a chance to turn the tables if he killed him? Anyway, when Master Lu attacked Ji Tianxing with all his might, the golden origin dragon emperor roared and used his ultimate move, Rage of the Ancestral Dragon. The golden origin dragon emperor shone with golden light that condensed into a 10,000 feet long ancestral dragon shadow. It stretched out its 5 huge claws and slammed down on Ji Tianxing. Before the dragon claws arrived, a terrifying suppressive force had already shrouded Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was instantly in a perilous situation. He could neither advance nor retreat and was in imminent danger. When God King Rahu and the left and right protectors saw that their young master was in danger, they were so angry that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They were so anxious that their insides burned. Unfortunately, everyone was too far away, and it was too late for them to stop and rescue him. The 9 king level upper divine artifacts exploded in the void, creating dazzling sparks around Ji Tianxing. A deafening explosion rang out, and the destructive shockwave immediately engulfed Ji Tianxing. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing's figure disappeared into thin air. The primordial chaos bell that blotted out the sky also disappeared with him. God King Rahu and the others were rather far away, so they didn't know what was going on. However, the golden origin dragon emperor and Mr. Lu saw clearly that Ji Tianxing had hidden inside the primal chaos primordial bell the moment the 9 divine weapons exploded. At the same time, the primordial chaos bell that covered the sky suddenly shrunk to the size of a speck of dust. Boom, 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 boom. The shockwave from the 9 divine weapons explosion turned into surging 5-colored flames that spread out like a tidal wave, sweeping across a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Mr. Lu retreated as fast as he could, while God King Rahu and the others were forced to stop and work together to defend themselves. The primordial chaos bell that was as small as a speck of dust was also blasted back a few thousand miles, tumbling in the void. Before the primordial chaos bell could stabilize, the ancestral dragon's huge claw that blotted out the sky slammed down. Bam! 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 The empty void was hit by the ancestral dragon's huge claw, and the void vibrated continuously. The primordial chaos bell was blasted back a few thousand miles, tumbling deeper into the void. Fortunately, the primordial chaos bell was a king-level upper divine artifact. Even after being hit repeatedly, it wasn't damaged. Ji Tianxing, who was hiding inside the primordial chaos bell, was unharmed. Ji Tianxing dodged the joint attack of Mr. Lu and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor just like that. The two of them were filled with frustration and resentment, while God King Rahu and the others in the distance heaved a sigh of relief. Taking advantage of this opportunity, God King Rahu hurried to the battlefield with 9 other God King experts to meet up with Ji Tianxing. "Young Master, we're here to help you." "Young Master, are you all right?" "Young Master, we've killed more than 1,000 soldiers under the Golden Dragon Emperor's command." The 10 God Kings surrounded the primordial chaos bell, bowing excitedly as they reported the battle situation. Swoosh! The primordial chaos bell suddenly expanded to a radius of 10,000 feet, and Ji Tianxing flew out from it, appearing in front of everyone unscathed. God King Rahu and the others hurriedly gathered around him, asking about his well-being and reporting the situation. "Young Master, we've killed the soldiers under the Golden Dragon Emperor's command. Only Mr. Lu managed to escape." "Young Master, you've worked hard to fight the Golden Dragon Emperor alone for so long. Don't worry, young Master. If we work together, we'll definitely be able to kill the Golden Dragon Emperor today." God King Rahu and the others discussed with Ji Tianxing the countermeasures and the next step of the plan. On the other side, Mr. Lu's expression was sorrowful, and his tone was solemn as he reported the results of the battle to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. "Your Majesty Dragon Emperor, the soldiers we have gathered from all over the world have all died in battle." When the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor saw Mr. Lu rushing over alone, he was already mentally prepared. However, when he heard the news and confirmed his suspicions, his vision still darkened. His chi and blood surged in reverse, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He could not accept this cruel blow, and he stared straight at Mr. Lu, asking in a low voice, "Are you sure? Everyone died in battle, and only you escaped?" Mr. Lu was also filled with grief, and his heart was extremely heavy. With tears in his eyes, he nodded and said, "Yes, I." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's body trembled, and his face turned as white as a sheet. His mind went blank for a moment. Mr. Lu was filled with grief, and he instinctively said, "Your Majesty, my condolences. We were ambushed by Long Tian, and more than 3,000 Myriad Demon Alliance soldiers surrounded us. All of them would rather die than retreat. They are heroes." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor took a deep breath and suppressed his grief, and he stared at Mr. Lu with a burning gaze. His lips parted several times, but no words came out of his mouth. In fact, he really wanted to roar and question Master Lu, "Why are you the only one who survived when everyone else died in the battle? Why don't you go and die?" However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not lose his rationality, and he did not say this in the end. After all, Mr. Lu was not injured, and he was still a powerful fighter. Moreover, Mr. Lu still had a huge network of forces in the extraterritorial galaxy, and he still had countless loyal subordinates. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had already thought it through. He had already suffered a crushing defeat in this battle with the Myriad Demon Alliance. Now, he could only escape from the Dragon Realm, go to the extraterritorial galaxy, and take control of that galaxy, and plan to rise again in the future. Therefore, he could not fall out with Mr. Lu yet. After taking a few deep breaths, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor finally suppressed his anger and calmed down. He nodded at Mr. Lu and said in a heavy tone, "The soldiers died in battle under orders, and they died a worthy death. I will always remember their sacrifice and dedication. Now, only you and I are left. Although we have lost our advantage, we cannot leave in such a cowardly manner." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 38-35. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's words were a clear indication of his current situation. He was not intoxicated by the power and glory of the past, and could not extricate himself, nor was he in a state of self-numbness. He had a clear understanding of the present and the future. Mr. Lu was very pleased with this. He quickly nodded in agreement and said, "Your Majesty, our military strength is not as good as the Myriad Demon Alliances, and we are not as well prepared as them. It is reasonable that we have lost this battle. As the saying goes, where there is life, there is hope. As long as you are around, we still have hope of making a comeback. As long as we can kill Long Tian or Luo Ho today, it will be a great victory. At that time, we will retreat to the extraterritorial galaxy, reorganize our troops, and build up our strength. When the time is right, we can still fight our way back to the Dragon Realm and take back the Star Source continent. When Mr. Lu said this, his eyes shone brightly. He was very confident and full of hope. After saying this, he did not forget to add, "Your Majesty, please rest assured that I will always support your decisions and follow you." This sentence was very inspiring and touching. At such a critical moment, Mr. Lu was still so loyal and did not abandon him. It was indeed commendable. However, when the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor heard this, a different thought appeared in his mind. Mr. Lu's sentence means that he does not want to die and cannot die. He is reminding me that those forces in the extraterritorial galaxy still need to be gathered and controlled by him. He is threatening me and forcing me to protect him. At this thought, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor laughed coldly in his heart. However, Tom did not allow him to think or talk more. On the other side, Ji Tianxing, Luo Ho Supreme Being, and the others had finished their discussion and formed a battle formation. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Ji Tianxing and the 10 God Kings joined hands to cast a spell in the void, forming a super sealing formation with a radius of 100,000 miles. In the next instant, boundless divine light condensed into a huge screen of light that descended from the sky and enveloped the area. Everyone was trapped in the sealing formation. Ji Tianxing and the 10 God Kings were not affected at all, and they could move freely. However, the formless sealing power was firmly suppressing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu, causing them to be unable to circulate their divine power freely. Under such circumstances, their battle prowess was greatly reduced. Kill the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. Once and for all. For the Star Source continent, for the Myriad Demon Alliance, kill. Luoho Immortal King and the other 9 Immortal Kings roared as they waved their divine weapons and unleashed their most powerful killing moves to surround and attack Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu. Hundreds of divine spells lit up, and countless divine spell phantoms appeared in the void. Swords and sabers, mountains and rivers, flying birds and giant beasts, flowing fire and lightning. All of them rained down and drowned Master Lu and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The two of them were like a sailboat in a stormy sea, bobbing up and down unsteadily. They were in imminent danger and could be torn into pieces at any moment. Boom, boom, boom. At this critical juncture, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu unleashed their strongest powers and unleashed their most powerful killing moves. The dazzling brilliance of the divine arts collided fiercely in the void, producing deafening explosions. After a series of clashes, the divine light fragments dissipated and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu flew out from the divine light. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not suffer any injuries, but his robe and hair were in a mess. There were some charred marks on his body, and he looked rather pathetic. However, Mr. Lu was in a terrible state. He was severely injured, and his body was covered in blood. There were hideous wounds on his chest and back. Even the antlers on his head had been sliced off by the divine light blades. He looked rather pitiful. Blood flowed down from his head and stained his face. His face was covered in blood, and he was panting heavily. His divine power was also in a mess. He looked around and saw that Ji Tianxing, God King Luoho, and the others were still filled with killing intent. Mr. Lu thought of retreating. "Your Majesty, they outnumber us. Not only do they have 9 high-level God Kings, but they also have 2 peak God Kings. Under such circumstances, it is meaningless for us to continue fighting. Why don't we leave now and return to the Sirius Star Zone to discuss further?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and the Sky Cleaving Axe. He turned to look at Mr. Lu and said expressionlessly, "Are you afraid, Mr. Lu?" Mr. Lu was speechless. He would be lying if he said that he was not afraid. If they continued fighting, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor might not die, but he would definitely die in battle. However, he could not admit to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's questioning. Therefore, he could only brace himself and explain, "I have nothing to fear as long as I am loyal to your majesty. However, I believe that the more dangerous the situation is, the more we need to remain calm and rational. The outcome is irreversible. We should preserve our strength and return to the Sirius star zone. After we have recuperated and strengthened our forces, we can make a comeback." However, before Mr. Lu could finish, Ji Tianxing, Luoho Supreme God, and the others launched another attack. They worked together to activate the sealing formation and released a terrifying power to suppress the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and Mr. Lu. At the same time, Ji Tianxing used the Apocalypse Sword to lock on to Mr. Lu's divine spirit. Luoho Supreme God, the left and right protectors, and Wanli Supreme God also locked onto Mr. Lu's aura and released their most violent mystiques. Everyone knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was very powerful and had the sky cleaving axe to protect him. It would not be easy to kill him. Therefore, they had to kill Mr. Lu first before attacking the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. At this moment, Mr. Lu was under the most terrifying pressure. Facing the joint attack of the group, he was extremely terrified. No! At this critical moment, he let out an indignant roar and unleashed his full potential to block the joint attack of the group. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's face darkened, and he was worried. He quickly went to help Mr. Lu. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor only managed to block half of the divine skill attacks. A few other mystiques hit Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu only managed to block 2 of the mystiques before he was hit by the Apocalypse Sword and the 5-colored poison blade. Kaboom! With a crisp cracking sound, Master Lu collapsed on the spot, exploding into pieces that blotted out the sky. A rain of blood splattered in the void. His divine body and godhead were not spared. They were smashed into pieces, and he died instantly. Even his divine artifact and protective armor were cut into pieces. Only a space ring was left. It was mixed with blood and scattered in the sky. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was filled with hatred. He did not hesitate to snatch the space ring. This was because the Domain Lord Star Seal of the Sirius Star Zone was in this space ring. Mr. Lu could die, but he could not lose the Domain Lord Star Seal. End of chapter. Chapter 38-36. The environment and situation in outer space was very different from the Dragon Realm. A star field usually had hundreds of thousands or even millions of stars, and thousands of them were inhabited by intelligent life forms. In other words, each star field had at least a few thousand worlds, and the life in each world was divided into different races. As a result, every star field had countless races. Whether it was knowledge, concepts, customs, or beliefs, they were all very different. It was very difficult to have a unified standard. Therefore, controlling a star field was much more difficult than controlling a star source continent. Even though the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had been in the Sirius Star Zone for hundreds of years and had built up a force that was not to be underestimated, he was still not strong enough. But he could not become the master of the stellar area, so he could only help Master Lu become the area master. Before this, he had controlled the entire Sirius Star Zone through Master Lu, and Master Lu controlled the entire star field with the Sirius Star Seal. It was a very important token that had a mysterious connection with the thousands of worlds in the Sirius Star Zone. Even if Master Lu was killed, as long as the Sirius Astral Seal remained, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor would still be able to control the Sirius Star Zone. Chua! The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor grabbed the interspatial ring and probed it with his spiritual consciousness. After confirming that the Sirius Star Seal was in the ring, he was secretly relieved. At this moment, Ji Tianxing, God King Rahu, and the others adjusted their formation slightly, shrinking the sealing array to a radius of 30,000 miles. The battlefield had shrunk significantly, and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had to bear the brunt of the seal alone. His battle prowess was further weakened. No one was in a hurry to attack. They secretly adjusted their divine power and prepared for the next joint attack. Luoho God King stared at the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and said coldly, Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, you are all alone now. Not only have you suffered a crushing defeat, but you will also die here. The outcome has already been decided. Do you still want to put up a desperate struggle? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not in a hurry to retaliate. He took the opportunity to consume 2 divine pills to quickly recover his divine power. The Sky Splitter axe circled above his head. He wielded the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and pointed it at God King Luoho, sneering, What? Could it be that if this emperor were to surrender, you would still spare this emperor's life? I don't think you would dare. Everyone knew that an overlord like the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, a peak god king, had to eliminate the source of trouble as long as the opportunity presented itself. If he was allowed to live, he would definitely be able to make a comeback. He would definitely make a comeback and take revenge. God King Luoho didn't deny this. Instead, he said expressionlessly, Golden Dragon Emperor, we all know that you must die, so why are you asking questions when you already know the answer? However, I can guarantee that I'll give you a dignified death, and I'll bury you in the profound paradise. Before God King Luoho could finish, Golden Origin Dragon Emperor interrupted him with a hearty laugh. Ha ha ha! You old bastard, you are truly treacherous. Not only do you want to kill me, but you also want to monitor me even after I die. You even want to imprison me in the Xuanji heavenly abode? Could it be that you're afraid that this emperor's remnant soul will come back to life and seek you for revenge? God King Luoho didn't deny this. Instead, he replied expressionlessly, You're the Golden Dragon Emperor. After all, of course I have to be more careful. Dream on. Golden Origin Dragon Emperor sneered disdainfully. Even though I've lost this battle, do you really think that you can kill me? Haha, I really don't know where you get your confidence from. As soon as he finished speaking, Golden Origin Dragon Emperor waved his Golden Dragon Divine Sword, sending out sword lights and dragon shadows that blotted out the sky. Then, he used his mind to control the sky, cleaving axe to attack Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing didn't let his guard down. He used his arts to control the primordial chaos bell to block the sky, cleaving axe's attack. God King Luoho and the left and right protectors also used all their mystiques to block the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attack. Both parties engaged in an intense battle in the void again, unleashing all their firepower. This time, the battle was even more intense than the previous one. There were 11 people on Ji Tianxing's side. They formed a battle formation and surrounded the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. No matter how strong the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was, he couldn't withstand the combined attacks of so many people. He had used up a lot of his divine power, and his strength started to weaken. He was in a precarious situation. In less than 100 breaths' time, both parties had exchanged hundreds of blows. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was starting to get injured. Although the sky-cleaving axe was very powerful, it was mostly neutralized by the primordial chaos bell. Moreover, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor couldn't defend himself in time. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's hair was disheveled and his clothes were tattered. Hideous wounds appeared on his body and blood kept spilling out of them. His expression and eyes were getting darker and darker. The anger and helplessness in his heart were also deepening. At this point, he was in a passive position. He could only block and parry the attacks. He couldn't even move forward or backward. Don't tell me, I'm really going to be killed by these worms? Impossible. No matter how bad my situation is, I can still fight my way out of here with the sky, cleaving axe in my hand. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor thought to himself as he used his arts to block the attacks of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Even though things had developed to this stage, he was still confident that he could escape. However, it was too humiliating for him to escape in such a pathetic manner. He couldn't accept it. Even if I can't do it, I will definitely lose today. I can only return to the Sirius Star Zone. I can't escape like this. I have to kill Long Tian to vent the hatred in my heart and deal a heavy blow to the Myriad Demon Alliance. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor thought to himself and gritted his teeth. In the entire Myriad Demon Alliance, the person he hated the most was Long Tian. His hatred and resentment for Long Tian far exceeded everyone else's. However, it's too difficult to kill Long Tian under the protection of the 10 supreme gods. Even though I have the sky cleaving axe, I have to sacrifice something and use my forbidden mystique to kill him. This thought flashed across the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's mind. After pondering for a while, he made up his mind. He waved the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and controlled the sky cleaving axe to force the Luoho Supreme Being and the left and right protectors to retreat. At this moment, Ji Tianxing brandished the Heaven Barrier sword and stabbed over. Now is the time. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had been waiting for this opportunity. He held the Golden Dragon Divine Sword tightly and used his forbidden mystique without hesitation. Reverse Blood Dragon Annihilation. At this moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor roared in his heart. He suddenly activated his secret technique. The blood in his body surged in reverse, and the power of his divine spirit poured out crazily. His entire body lit up with a dazzling golden light. He was as dazzling as the sun. His body also expanded rapidly. His clothes and armor were torn to pieces. His entire body was covered with dense dragon scales. In order to use this ultimate technique, he had sacrificed 5,000 years of cultivation and infused it all into the Golden Dragon Divine Sword. The Golden Dragon Divine Sword instantly expanded 1,000 times and became a dazzling light sword. It carried the power to destroy everything and slashed toward Ji Tianxing. Although the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would be greatly weakened after using this forbidden mystique, he would still be in a weakened state. However, he had used his strongest attack and sacrificed his destiny artifact, the Golden Dragon Divine Sword, to kill Ji Tianxing on the spot. Chapter 38-37. At this moment, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Divine Sword were the most dazzling sun in the void. He was like the sun that was setting in the west, changing from golden brilliance to dim and lightless, and gradually returning to silence. When the golden radiance disappeared, his body was hunched over and his hair had turned white. He had also become old and weak. As for the 1,000-meter-long Golden Dragon Divine Sword, it had been infused with a terrifying amount of power. It had completely turned into a pillar of light. It was like a sword radiance that could split the heavens and earth. It was also like a crystal-clear pillar of fire. It contained the most violent sword intent, divine power, spiritual energy, and more than 200 types of laws. Of course, there was also a trace of Taoist rhyme that was hidden deeply. That was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's strongest killing move. When the Golden Dragon Divine Sword slashed towards him, Ji Tianxing frowned. He felt immense pressure and the threat of death. His expression turned grave. However, he did not hesitate and had no intention of retreating. He immediately controlled the Primordial Chaos Bell to protect himself. He wanted to use the Primordial Chaos Bell's strong defense to take the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's attack head-on. After all, the Golden Dragon Divine Sword had locked onto his godhead. There was no way he could escape. He knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had paid a huge price to use this forbidden mystique. As long as he could withstand this attack, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not be a threat. He would be able to kill him quickly. At this moment, God King Luoho, the left and right protectors, and the Wanli Divine King were all shocked. Their eyes widened in fear and worry. No one had expected the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to be so cunning and bold. He was willing to sacrifice thousands of years of cultivation to kill Ji Tianxing. In their extreme worry and shock, no one hesitated. They charged towards the Golden Dragon Divine Sword without caring about their own safety. They wanted to help Ji Tianxing block the fatal attack. At this moment, there was only one thought in everyone's mind. They would rather sacrifice themselves than let anything happen to the young master. If he died here, the 10,000 Demon Alliance would go on as usual. Nothing would change. However, if the young master died, all the efforts of the Myriad Demon Alliance would be meaningless. Whoosh! Swish! God King Rahu and the left and right protectors instinctively unleashed their full strength and charged at the golden dragon sword as fast as they could. Everyone burned their divine power and blood, turning into shooting stars. However, everyone's strength and realm were different, so there was also a difference in speed. Aside from God King Rahu and the left and right protectors, no one else would be able to catch up. However, Ji Tianxing didn't have the slightest intention of retreating or dodging. Instead, he went forward to meet the attack head-on. Shua, under his control, the primordial chaos bell changed its appearance and turned into a pitch-black armor that covered his entire body. He wielded the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and unleashed the sword of world annihilation, unleashing his most powerful strike at the golden dragon divine sword. Seeing this, everyone understood his intentions and decision. He would rather take on the golden dragon divine sword himself than let God King Rahu and the others die for him. The eyes of God King Rahu and the left and right protectors instantly turned red. They were so anxious that their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. However, no one could stop all of this. Kaboom! In the next instant, the golden sword of world annihilation, tens of thousands of feet long, slammed into the golden dragon divine sword. The two giant swords collided violently with an earth-shattering boom, sending out billions of golden fragments. Without any doubt, the dazzling golden sword of world annihilation was shattered by the golden dragon divine sword and disintegrated. However, the golden dragon divine sword's speed was reduced by 50% and its power was weakened by 40%. Then, the dazzling golden dragon divine sword slashed at Ji Tianxing. Bam! A loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens exploded in the void, spreading for tens of thousands of miles. After the giant sword and the 10,000-foot-tall Ji Tianxing collided, the most dazzling sparks and shadows bloomed in the void. The golden dragon divine sword was destroyed on the spot, turning into a torrent of divine light that rose into the sky like a mushroom cloud. Most of the divine light torrent spread in all directions and swept through the void. However, a small portion of the divine light torrent still wrapped around the black-armored Ji Tianxing and smashed him into the depths of the void. That's right, Ji Tianxing was sent flying by the terrifying impact. His body was bent over, and blood spurted out of his 7 orifices. He tumbled for tens of thousands of miles before he finally slowed down. Although he had the protection of the primordial chaos bell, which helped him block most of the power of the golden dragon divine sword, he used his own strength and the primordial chaos bell to neutralize the various powers of the golden dragon divine sword. For example, he neutralized the sword intent, the power of the divine spirit, and the power of laws. However, the trace of Taoist rhyme hidden in the torrent of divine light had dealt him a heavy blow at the most critical moment. The Taoist rhyme was too mysterious. It had long surpassed the category of the divine Tao and divine power. It was a trace of the heavenly Tao's power that a peak divine king had comprehended the heavenly Tao. Ji Tianxing was an 8th-level divine king, comparable to a peak divine king. However, he was still not a peak divine king and had yet to comprehend the heavenly Tao or condense the Taoist rhyme. Therefore, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had to sacrifice a trace of Taoist rhyme in order to kill him. And now, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had succeeded. Although Ji Tianxing had not been killed, he was severely injured and his aura was weak as he floated in the void. Whoosh! Whoosh! Wrapped in black armor, Ji Tianxing was like a piece of duckweed that floated unsteadily in the depths of the sea of emptiness. He was unable to move. Only the black armor kept flashing with a weak golden light, as if it was resisting something. It was obvious that the trace of Taoist rhyme from the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had not dissipated. It was still entangling him and corroding his godhead and consciousness. Tens of thousands of miles away, the weakened Golden Origin Dragon Emperor looked at Ji Tianxing, who was floating in the depths of the void, and smiled coldly, as if he had succeeded. He spat out a mouthful of blood as a sinister smile appeared on his blood-stained face. "Little bastard, you want to fight with me?" You are too naive. I will kill you today. After I return to the Sirius star zone to recuperate, I will return to kill Luo-ho another day. At that time, I will still have a last laugh and regain control of the Star Source continent. On the other side, the Luo-ho Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and the other 9 people were staring at the void. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was motionless, his weak divine light drifting into the depths of the void as if he was dead or alive, everybody was filled with grief. They were so angry that their eyes almost popped out. Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, I swear I will grind your bones to dust. The Luo-ho Supreme Being's eyes were bloodshot. His body was burning with bloody flames as he exuded a strong, killing intent. The left and right protectors, the Wanli Supreme Being, and the others were also enraged. They roared and cursed. However, they ignored the weakened Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and rushed toward Ji Tianxing. Compared to killing the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor to avenge their young master, their first reaction was to save their young master. However, at this moment, the motionless Ji Tianxing, who was still floating in the void, suddenly shone with a 5-colored light. The Luo-ho Supreme Being, the left and right protectors, and the others were still tens of thousands of miles away when a voice transmission sounded in their minds. Don't go near him. Don't touch him. If you want to talk about sword-piercing the 9 heavens with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Talk about life, find friends. Chapter 38:38. The sudden divine sense voice transmission stunned everyone. Everyone stopped and looked confused as they searched for the person who had transmitted the voice transmission. It was a middle-aged man's voice. It was deep and majestic, and his tone was unquestionable. However, everyone's eyes and divine senses searched the surrounding void for tens of thousands of miles, but they could not find the middle-aged man. Only God King Luo-ho was stunned for a moment before he guessed the identity of the person who had transmitted the voice transmission. However, he did not reveal it, nor did he search for that person. He immediately understood that since the other party had transmitted the voice transmission to warn him, it meant that his young master was not in danger. Moreover, from the other party's tone, he could tell that his young master was in a complicated and delicate situation. Therefore, God King Luo-ho led the others and spread out in the void, forming a circle to protect Ji Tianxing. Everyone obeyed and stared at Ji Tianxing with concern and curiosity. They wanted to see how he would react and whether he was in danger. No one knew that Ji Tianxing, who appeared to be unconscious and motionless, was actually more awake than anyone else. Although he had been severely injured by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Taoist rhyme, he had not fainted. Instead, his godhead was surrounded by the Taoist rhyme, and his consciousness entered a miraculous illusion. It was a vast expanse of white, boundless sea of clouds like soft cotton wool. He floated in the sea of clouds as though he was weightless. Above his head was the clear blue sky, without a trace of impurities. Regardless of whether it was the sea of clouds or the sky, they were all ethereal, clear, and peaceful. Being in the illusion, his mind was free of distracting thoughts, and he felt very comfortable. He seemed to have lost his emotions. He had cast aside love and hatred, and only wanted to merge with heaven and earth and exist forever. Without a doubt, Ji Tianxing was no stranger to this illusion. Previously, when he had suffered a Tao injury and used the heaven-mending pearl to heal his Tao injury, he had entered this illusion. After drifting in the illusion and sleeping for 100 years, he had comprehended some of the heavenly Tao's will. After waking up, his Tao injury had healed. Now he had been injured by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Taoist rhyme, and his godhead was entangled by the Taoist rhyme, and he had entered the illusion again. Ji Tianxing was not worried at all. His mind and emotions immediately calmed down, becoming peaceful and peaceful. With the experience from last time, he wandered in the sea of clouds and the sky, feeling neither sadness nor joy, emotionless and without desire. Not long after, dense rainbows appeared in the calm blue sky, crisscrossing like a grid. Every rainbow light contained an intense personal will, as well as the fusion and comprehension of the power of the heavenly Tao. Ji Tianxing immediately understood that this should be the Tao aura of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Now, the large net formed by the rainbow light had trapped him in a sea of clouds, restricting his movements and preventing him from roaming freely. He was not in a hurry. He neither struggled nor attacked the grids. He only flew in the limited space in the sky, carefully observing the 7 colored meridians, feeling and comprehending the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao presence. What was Tao rhyme? Cultivators that had reached the peak of the divine Tao could be said to be the strongest living beings in the world, and they had the qualifications to communicate and interact with the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was superior to all living beings in the universe. If living beings wanted to become stronger, they had to feel and comprehend the will of the heavenly Tao, as well as learn and imitate the power of the heavenly Tao. The comprehension that living beings gained from this and the power of the heavenly Tao was called Tao rhyme. Ji Tianxing understood that the heavenly Tao was different in the eyes of different living beings. Naturally, each living being's understanding of the heavenly Tao and the Tao rhyme that they condensed were different. In his previous life, as a peak godly king, Qin Shin, he had also condensed 3 wisps of Tao rhyme. Those were his 3 comprehensions of the heavenly Tao. In this life, he had not become a peak godly king and had not condensed his Tao rhyme. However, he still had memories of the 3 wisps of Tao rhyme from his previous life. He observed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao rhyme and realized that it was different from his 3 wisps of Tao rhyme. Not only were their powers different, but even their understanding of the heavenly Tao and their use of the power of the heavenly Tao were also very different. Kakik. Even if every peak godly king's Tao rhyme is different and their understanding of the heavenly Tao is different, the heavenly Tao is still the same. However, the heavenly Tao was still the heavenly Tao. It would not change because of any living being's perception. Compared to the supreme heavenly Tao, living beings are still too weak. This thought flashed across Ji Tianxing's mind, and he could not help but chuckle. He observed for a few more hours. Of course, it could also be a few breaths of time, or even a few months. Finally, he finished his observation and gained a deeper understanding of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao rhyme. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor has cultivated for more than 20,000 years. His Tao rhyme is deep and stable, and he can justify himself. Although his understanding of the Tao rhyme is different from mine, there is no right or wrong. I can learn from it and use it for myself. I can also understand the heavenly Tao from a different perspective. This is not a bad idea. With that in mind, Ji Tianxing tried to open his arms to embrace, accept, and absorb the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Tao rhyme. In the end, he was like an invisible whirlpool that started to devour the rainbow light. Whoosh, whoosh. Ray after ray of rainbow light flowed into his body like tiny streams, being absorbed and controlled by him. After an unknown amount of time, the colorful rainbow light that covered the sky and covered the sun was completely absorbed by him. The rainbow grid disappeared, and he regained his freedom. Although he had profited from his misfortune and obtained the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Taoist presence, he had become the first expert in history who was not a peak immortal king to master Taoist presence. However, his emotions were neither sad nor happy. They were calm and unwavering, to the point of being emotionless. Soon, the illusion began to collapse, and the blue sky and the vast sea of clouds gradually dissipated. Shua, Ji Tianxing, who was wrapped in black armor and glowing with 5-color divine light, finally opened his eyes. He stood up and stretched his body. He discovered that the injuries he had suffered earlier had actually recovered. Even the bloodstains on his body had disappeared without a trace. Most importantly, the 5-color Taoist rhyme that had been entangling him had disappeared too. Amazing. It seems that the dreamland is a great opportunity for me. Ji Tianxing was still lamenting in his heart when he heard a series of surprised cheers. This is great. The young master is finally awake. This is unbelievable. The The young master has actually recovered. The young master was severely injured. How did he recover after sleeping for a while? I've said it before. The young master is the most powerful and will never be defeated. Hearing the cheers, Ji Tianxing turned around and saw the Luo Ho Supreme Being and the left and right protectors flying over from all directions, their faces filled with excitement. He thought for a while, and guess what had happened earlier? He could not help but feel warmth in his heart. At this moment, in the void tens of thousands of miles away, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, who had just consumed a divine pill to recover his divine power, was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 38-39. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had thought that Long Tian would definitely die after being severely injured by his ultimate skill and corroded by his Taoist rhyme. Even if he had to sacrifice the Golden Dragon Divine Sword and 5,000 years of cultivation, it would still be worth it even if his vitality was greatly damaged. At least, he had gotten rid of his greatest threat, and it would be easier for him to take revenge in the future. Therefore, when he saw Luo Ho and the rest flying toward Long Tian and protecting him nervously, he thought it was hilarious. He was not in a hurry to escape. He took out some elixirs and consumed them. Then he meditated on the spot. He wanted to see Long Tian being corroded by his Taoist rhyme and disintegrate bit by bit. At that time, God King Luo Ho and the others would definitely be enraged and attack him without regard for anything else, wanting to avenge Long Tian. With the sky cleaving axe, he would definitely be able to kill a few more God Kings and weaken the Myriad Demon Alliance further. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had even considered the possibility that Luo Ho did not have a supreme grade, king grade divine artifact. After killing Long Tian, he could continue to deal with Luo Ho and the rest. He might even be able to kill Luo Ho. If he could kill Luo Ho, the other God Kings would not be a threat, and the Myriad Demon Alliance would be finished. At that time, he would not even need to escape from the Dragon Realm. He could easily destroy the Myriad Demon Alliance and regain control of the Star Source continent. However, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor did not expect that his beautiful dream would be cruelly shattered just as it started. After being corroded by his Taoist rhyme, Long Tian remained unconscious for 15 minutes before he recovered. Not only did all his injuries disappear, but his Taoist rhyme had also recovered his strength. What terrified the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor even more was that he felt a familiar Taoist rhyme aura from Long Tian's body. He sensed it carefully for a moment and suddenly guessed the result. His eyes widened, and he was completely dumbfounded. That's my Taoist rhyme? How is this possible? The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was stunned. He stared at everything with his mouth agape. His mind was blank. He knew that there were only two possibilities for his Taoist rhyme to remain in Long Tian's body. The first possibility was that his Taoist rhyme did not dissipate after killing Long Tian. The second possibility was that Long Tian devoured his Taoist rhyme. Since Long Tian was safe and sound, it was obviously not the first result. However, he was completely unable to accept the second result. That was too absurd. In his entire life, in the past 20,000 years, he had never heard of anyone who could devour another person's Tao presence. No one would believe such a thing. However, the scene before his eyes had happened. Monster! This little bastard is definitely a monster. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was both shocked and enraged. He was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. Fortunately, God King Rahu and the 10,000 Demon Alliance's God Kings were still immersed in the shock and joy of Long Tian's safe awakening. Everyone gathered together and screamed, asking about Long Tian's well-being, temporarily forgetting his existence. If we don't leave now, when should we? As this thought flashed through his mind, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor turned around and fled into the depths of the void without hesitation. Even though his actions were very low-key and he tried his best to conceal his aura, not wanting to alarm anyone. However, in the void tens of thousands of miles away, Ji Tianxing immediately noticed the abnormality. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is escaping. Stop him. Ji Tianxing's words reminded everyone. God King Rahu, the left and right protectors, and the other god kings also noticed the golden origin dragon emperor's actions and immediately chased after him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, everyone put away their excitement and chased after the golden origin dragon emperor with all their might. He used too much of his strength to execute the forbidden mystique previously. His vitality is greatly damaged, and he is at his weakest. Now is the best time to kill him. We can't let him escape. Chase after him. Everyone shouted as they chased after the golden origin dragon emperor with their fastest speed. Unfortunately, only Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu were able to catch up with the golden origin dragon emperor. The left and right protectors and the other god kings were left behind. Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu increased their speed and were getting closer to the golden origin dragon emperor. It wouldn't be long before they caught up with the golden origin dragon emperor. In his current weakened state, he only had 50% of his strength left. He was no match for Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu. Once he was caught, he would have no chance to escape. He would definitely die. At this critical moment, the golden origin dragon emperor made a prompt decision. He entered the sky splitter axe and used it to break through the void and escape with all his might. This move was indeed effective. After chasing for 15 minutes, he had left God King Rahu far behind. However, Ji Tianxing used the primal chaos primordial bell to catch up with him. They were only 80,000 miles apart. The golden origin dragon emperor was already very tired and weak. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was still unwilling to let him go and was unable to shake him off, he could only make a painful decision. He burned his god blood and strength and used all his might to activate the sky splitter axe. Swish! The sky splitter axe shrunk to 1 foot tall and turned into a dark golden flame. It flew into the depths of the void at a speed faster than the speed of light. Ji Tianxing also used all his strength to activate the primal chaos primordial bell. It streaked across the void like a black shooting star and followed closely behind the sky splitter axe. Unfortunately, in terms of offensive power and speed, the primal chaos primordial bell was still inferior to the sky splitter axe. As time passed, the distance between the two gradually increased. Unless Ji Tianxing also used a forbidden mystique and sacrificed his strength, lifespan, or burned his god blood to activate the primal chaos primordial bell. Otherwise, he was destined to never catch up with the sky splitter axe. However, killing the golden origin dragon emperor was not Ji Tianxing's only goal. He still had many important things to do. He could not harm himself now and waste another 100 years to heal himself. Therefore, he could only watch as the sky splitter axe flew further and further away before finally disappearing into the depths of the void. For hours later, Ji Tianxing gave up on chasing the golden origin dragon emperor and had to return. Not long after, he met God King Rahu, who was chasing after him. Seeing Ji Tianxing return, God King Rahu knew without asking that he had not caught up with the golden origin dragon emperor. Regarding this, he wasn't disappointed. It was all within his expectations. The two rode on the primal chaos primordial bell and returned together. After flying for an hour, they met the left and right protectors, God King Wanli, and the others again. Although these 9 god kings were weaker and were destined to never catch up with the golden origin dragon emperor, they were still worried about their safety. However, they were worried about the safety of the young master and the alliance master, so they still followed them. Ji Tianxing led the group, slowed down, and flew back to the dragon realm. Very quickly, for hours had passed. The group flew back to the edge of the dragon realm and stopped outside the spatial barrier of the mystical paradise. Previously, Ji Tianxing and the golden origin dragon emperor had fought and shattered the spatial barrier of the mystical paradise. Only then did they enter the void. At this point, the spatial barrier had already healed. Ji Tianxing could only activate the Burial of Heaven and use all his strength to slash open a crack in the spatial barrier. Before the crack healed, the group passed through and returned to the mystical paradise. Chapter 3840. In the depths of the void. The blazing sky, cleaving axe gradually slowed down and soon returned to normal. The flames dissipated. Inside the sky, cleaving axe, the gold origin dragon emperor's body withered and fell to the ground. Ji Tianxing had pushed him too hard for the past 4 hours. He did not dare to relax at all. In the end, he had burned his divine blood and power for 4 hours. It was as if his entire body had been drained dry. Previously, in order to use his ultimate skill, he had sacrificed 5,000 years of his cultivation, causing his vitality to be greatly damaged. Now, his injuries had worsened. His aura and divine power had completely withered. Even his divine Tao foundation had been damaged. This was the worst injury the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had ever suffered in his life. This was not something that could be recovered in 1 or 200 years. In fact, even if he escaped back to the Sirius Star Zone to recuperate, he might not be able to recover his damaged divine Tao foundation. At the thought of this, the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor trembled in anger. He felt as if a knife was twisting in his heart. Unparalleled resentment burst forth. Dragon! Heavens! The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor roared in a hoarse voice. His face was distorted as he cursed. You damned worm! I will remember today's humiliation. I will return it 100-fold in the future. If I don't grind your bones to dust and tear the members of the Myriad Demon Alliance into pieces, I swear that I am not a dragon. When the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor roared the last word, he spat out a mouthful of blood. In a fit of anger, his head tilted to the side and he fainted. The sky-cleaving axe was not affected. It continued to fly into the depths of the void. Outside the dragon realm, in the void adjacent to the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, a black divine ship slowly sailed over. On the deck of the divine ship, there was a jade table, a large chair, and a middle-aged profiteer in a blue robe. He reclined on the large chair and narrowed his eyes as he looked at the spatial crack that was gradually closing. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Kid, I can only help you this much. What happens next is up to you. The blue-robed profiteer muttered to himself. After that, he closed his eyes and split a portion of his consciousness to control his incarnation. The Dragon General's clone hiding in the Xuanji Grotto Heaven was still lurking in the dark. Under the blue-robed profiteer's will, the Dragon General clone silently flew across the sky, heading towards the exit of the Enigma Grotto. When a matter is done, I'll leave with a flick of my sleeves, hiding my achievements and fame. Perfect. Long Zhang's incarnation muttered to himself and left with a smug look on his face. At the same time, Ji Tianxing, God King Rahu, and the others returned to the Golden Dragon Mountain ruins. Almost 3,000 soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance were still adjusting their breathing in the ruins and waiting patiently. Although they were recuperating, many people could not calm down. They were still worried about the safety of Ji Tianxing and the others. At this moment, seeing Ji Tianxing, God King Rahu, and the others return safely, many of the soldiers cheered excitedly. God King Rahu said a few simple words to soothe the soldiers. Then he issued a series of orders and assigned tasks to the soldiers. Some people were in charge of taking care of the injured. Through the teleportation divine array, they were sent back to the demon city to recuperate. Some people were in charge of sealing off the exit of the Enigma Grotto. Others were in charge of the reconstruction plan. After all, the 10,000 Demon Alliance had achieved a complete victory in this battle. The Enigma Grotto could be considered to have been completely conquered. They could now build a divine palace. Next, the 10,000 Demon Alliance had to carry out a series of plans to gradually stabilize and control the Star Source continent. Almost every elder, hall master, and division master was assigned a task and immediately got busy. Not long after, the 3,000 soldiers dispersed. Only Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu were left in the sky above the ruins. God King Rahu looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile and said, "Young master, it is all thanks to you that we were able to achieve such a smooth and thorough victory. You have worked hard. Quickly return to the demon city to recuperate. Just leave the rest of the trivial matters to this old man." Ji Tianxing waved his hand and looked at him. He said seriously, "Snake Fu, tell me the truth. The soldiers were able to achieve such an easy victory and kill the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor subordinates so quickly? Did that person secretly help them? This, God King Rahu hesitated and nodded. That's right. He could not attack the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. He could only secretly help the soldiers of our alliance. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, now that things are over, he doesn't need to hide anymore. He should come out and meet me, right? God King Rahu was a little embarrassed. He explained with a smile, young master, he probably did not want to be involved in karma, so he has already left. He does not plan to meet me? Ji Tianxing raised an eyebrow and looked puzzled. God King Rahu could only nod. Ji Tianxing frowned and said, but I want to meet him. There are some things that I want to ask him about. Ere this, God King Rahu hesitated and nodded. All right, young master, please wait for a moment. I will contact him immediately. God King Rahu walked to the side and took out a transmission jade slip to send a message to the Black Dragon Emperor. Not long after, a divine sense voice transmission sounded in his mind. Abstruse Grotto Heaven's exit, 50,000 miles southeast. I will be waiting for you. God King Rahu knew that the Black Dragon Emperor was still in Abstruse Grotto Heaven and had not left. He hurriedly said to Ji Tianxing, young master, he has agreed to meet you. I will bring you there. God King Rahu then brought Ji Tianxing and rushed to the Abstruse Grotto Heaven's exit. About 15 minutes later, the two of them were 50,000 miles southeast of the exit. They saw a burly man in black armor and covered in dragon scales. This was the Black Dragon Emperor's Long Jiang clone. He was standing on a mountain peak, quietly looking down at the cliff below. Ji Tianxing and God King Rahu descended from the sky and landed on the grassy mountain peak. Long Jiang's clone had his back to them and said calmly, I've already helped as much as I can. Why are you not satisfied? His deep and vigorous voice carried a hint of displeasure and irritation. Ji Tianxing looked at Long Jiang's clone's back and then at God King Rahu beside him. He suddenly smiled. No wonder he refused to reveal his identity, and you wanted to hide it from me. So it's him. Clearly, Ji Tianxing had determined the other party's identity through Long Jiang's clone. God King Rahu could only smile awkwardly and take a step back. He bowed and said, young master, please continue. Ji Tianxing did not say anything else. He waved for him to leave and walked toward Long Jiang's clone. When he was 100 feet away from Long Jiang's clone, Long Jiang suddenly raised his hand and said, all right, don't come any closer. If you have something to say, say it. Ji Tianxing's smile deepened. He cupped his hands and bowed. Long Tian greets the Black Dragon Emperor. After bowing, he said in a mocking tone, I'm not a snake man. I'm not poisonous. Why are you hiding so far away? I think you're not only poisonous, but also evil. It's better if we keep our distance. Long John's clone shrugged and turned to look at him. Chapter 38:41. Me? Poisonous? Ji Tianxing looked at that square face with a wide nose. His expression was particularly interesting. If he did not know the Black Dragon Emperor's nature, he would not believe that this dragon general with thick eyebrows and big eyes would say such words. Old Black Dragon, you have to give me a reasonable explanation today. How am I poisonous? We haven't met for more than 1,000 years. This is the first time we meet, and you're telling me this? Ji Tianxing glared at Long Zhang's incarnation with anger written all over his face. Long Zhang's incarnation rolled his eyes at him and said angrily, You've only returned to the Dragon Realm for 2 months, and you've already offended the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor. In less than 2 years, you destroyed the mysterious Grotto Heaven. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's right-hand men and trusted generals were all killed by you. You also severely injured him and forced him to escape into outer space. Tell me, are you poisonous? I don't dare to be too close to you. I don't want to be implicated by you. I don't know what kind of trouble you're going to cause. Ji Tianxing was speechless. Thinking about it carefully, it did make sense. He was unconvinced and asked again, Then why do you say that I'm evil? Long Zhang's incarnation crossed his arms and looked down at him. He asked with a playful smile, You've refined the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor's trace of Dao aura, right? Ji Tianxing was stunned. He thought to himself, How did you know? However, He immediately reacted and asked subconsciously, "So you've been hiding in the dark to watch the battle?" Long Zhang's incarnation smiled and continued, "Looks like you've admitted it. Then I want to ask you, how did you do it? Do you know that Dao aura is the most mysterious thing? Even peak godly kings can't understand it. Since ancient times, there have been less than 20 peak godly kings who could condense Dao auras. As for learning, imitating, and comprehending other people's Dao auras, there's not a single one. What are you doing? Creating a miracle? Breaking the rules? Defying the heavens?" Ji Tianxing was speechless. After all, he still hadn't figured out exactly what was going on with that mysterious dreamscape. He couldn't believe that he had really absorbed the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Dao ripples. He would never tell the Black Dragon Emperor that he was only at the 8th level of the Divine King realm. He had yet to become a peak Divine King. "Tell me, aren't you very evil?" Long Zhang's incarnation looked at him vigilantly and said in a serious tone, "This emperor seriously suspects that you are a freak." Ji Tianxing curled his lips and pondered for a moment before replying, "Maybe it's because I'm too outstanding." The Dragon General's incarnation rolled his eyes again. "All right, I don't want to ask you how to refine his Taoist rhyme. Even if you tell me, I can't do it. After all, I'm not a little monster like you. I only want to say that I have already risked the wrath of the heavens by secretly helping you this time. If there's nothing important, let's part ways here. We won't see each other for 100 years." Long Zhang waved his hand and turned to leave. Ji Tianxing had a mocking smile on his face as he asked, "That's not like you. You weren't so cowardly in the past. Why are you so afraid of the will of the heavens and karma? Are you afraid that I'll implicate you? But the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is already severely injured. He can't threaten you at all." Long Zhang's incarnation glanced at him and said, "Kid, things aren't as simple as you think. I was too naive previously. If I knew that you were a freak, I wouldn't have helped you." The Black Dragon Emperor and Long Tian had always been on good terms. Although the two of them were seniors and juniors, they addressed each other as brothers, as if they were close friends despite the difference in age. That was why the Black Dragon Emperor had no scruples in front of Ji Tianxing. He would say whatever was on his mind. Because of some unspeakable reasons, he hid some secrets in his heart that he couldn't reveal. Of course, there were also questions that had troubled him for thousands of years. Now that he saw Ji Tianxing's performance, the Black Dragon Emperor had even more guesses and was even more fearful. Seeing the Black Dragon Emperor's reaction, Ji Tianxing realized that something was wrong. He hurriedly asked, "Old Black Dragon, do you know some secret? Tell me, what secret is it? Is it related to my master's disappearance?" Long Zhang's incarnation narrowed his eyes, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. However, he didn't admit it. Instead, he asked, "Do you think I'll answer your question? If I were to ask you what you have experienced in the past 1,000 years, would you answer me truthfully?" The answer was naturally no. That was why Ji Tianxing remained silent. Long Zhang's incarnation didn't say anything else. He said, "I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first. See you in 100 years." He had too many questions in his heart. He needed to return to the Black Dragon continent as soon as possible to analyze, investigate, and figure it out. At the same time, the Myriad Demon Alliance needed 100 years to stabilize and control the Star Source continent. Ji Tianxing hurriedly reached out and stopped Long Zhang's incarnation. "Wait, I can promise you that I'll look for you in 100 years. However, I have something very important that I need your help with." Long Zhang's incarnation turned to look at him and said, "Say it. I'll try my best." Ji Tianxing explained, "Ophiuchus might have told you that I returned to the Dragon Realm to look for my son, Wu Hen. He was captured by a peak Divine King. That expert is most likely from the Dragon race. Of course, it's also possible that he's not from the Dragon race. Instead, he's proficient in the Dragon race's divine ability." After he finished speaking, Long Zhang's incarnation waved his hand without hesitation. "Ophiuchus said this before. I don't know anything about it. I've never seen a human youth named Wu Hen." Ji Tianxing revealed a disappointed expression. He said sincerely, "Even if you haven't seen him, I want you to help me ask the other Dragon Emperors and peak Divine Kings." Long John's incarnation thought for a while and said, "The other dragon emperors might not be in the dragon realm in recent years. As for those peak divine kings other than the Black Dragon continent, I'm not familiar with the peak divine kings of the other continents." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "All right. In any case, try your best to help me ask. I'll also go and look for him myself. I'll leave you a few communication jade slips. If there's any news, inform me." After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and shot out a ray of golden light. It wrapped around a few communication jade slips and sent them to Long John's incarnation. Long John's incarnation accepted the communication jade slips and said, "Myriad Demon Alliance still has a lot of trivial matters for you to deal with. It's not that easy to be a supreme overlord. It's best that you take control of the Star Source continent first. After stabilizing the situation, you can investigate this matter." Ji Tianqing smiled and waved his hand. He said, "Leave these trivial matters to Ophiuchus. I'm not interested in the position of overlord." Long John's incarnation was stunned. He said with a face full of astonishment, "Did I hear wrongly? You've caused so much trouble, and you don't want to be an overlord? Then what are you after?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "I just want to have a place to stay in the dragon realm. No matter what happens in the future, this place can be my final fortress and home." Ophiuchus created the Myriad Demon Alliance and developed it into the second largest faction in the Star Source continent. And I've been forced to become enemies with the Mysterious Paradise. So I can only go with the flow and plan ahead. First, I'll destroy the Mysterious Paradise and support the Myriad Demon Alliance. Just to have a place to stay, you destroyed the Mysterious Paradise and overthrew the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor? Long John's incarnation had a strange expression. He gave Ji Tianqing a thumbs up and praised sincerely. "You're really something." After he finished speaking, Long John's incarnation did not linger. He turned and flew away without hesitation. Not long after, he left the Mysterious Paradise. I wish everyone a safe and healthy life. Also, please give me a few recommendation tickets. End of chapter. Chapter 3842. When Ji Tianqing and the 10,000 Demon Alliance's soldiers returned to the 10,000 Demon City, a piece of shocking news quickly spread. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor has suffered a crushing defeat. His subordinates have all been slaughtered. The 10,000 Demon Alliance has won. This piece of news was purposely spread by the 10,000 Demon Alliance and quickly spread across the entire Star Source continent. In just a few days, the hundreds of domains of the Star Source continent and the billions of citizens knew about this shocking news. For a time, all the demon tribes on the continent who were paying attention to this matter and received the news were stunned. Many people were unwilling to believe this result. They thought that the 10,000 Demon Alliance was spreading rumors to slander the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. However, no one dared to refute this news. As time passed, more and more information began to spread across the continent. All kinds of news confirmed the 10,000 Demon Alliance's victory and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's crushing defeat. Therefore, those demon tribes who were unwilling to believe could only accept the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's crushing defeat. Everyone knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's era was over. The 10,000 Demon Alliance's era was coming. The overlord of the Star Source continent was about to change hands. The various domains, countless forces, and billions of citizens were discussing this matter with mixed feelings. Many people were unwilling to let the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's era end. They were conflicted about the 10,000 Demon Alliance's era. They needed time and some process to accept this reality. Many empires, domain lords, and forces were already planning and considering how to curry favor with the new overlord in order to gain more benefits. Some forces who were originally inclined towards the 10,000 Demon Alliance or were loyal to the 10,000 Demon Alliance were overjoyed and excited. As the saying went, a new emperor brings in new subordinates. Now that the 10,000 Demon Alliance was in control of the continent, their status as subordinates and vassals of the 10,000 Demon Alliance would skyrocket and become the noblest force. They were eager to see the 10,000 Demon Alliance take over the Star Source continent. They could not wait any longer. Half a month later, the outside world was still discussing the 10,000 Demon Alliance's victory. The soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance treated their injuries and rested for half a month before returning to their posts. As one order after another was issued from the Myriad Demon City, the forces of the Myriad Demon Alliance scattered in various regions began to take action. Public opinion and publicity were just preparatory work in order to give the people of the world some time to mentally prepare themselves. In the following actions, the 10,000 Demon Alliance tried to be conciliatory and gradually spread out from the territory of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. It required time and patience. For many years to come, the members of the 10,000 Demon Alliance would have to work hard. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Alliance Master Luo Ho had given strict orders that they could not use force unless absolutely necessary. Everyone in the Alliance understood that it was easy to conquer the world, but difficult to defend it. If one wanted to smoothly take over the Star Source continent and obtain the approval of the billions of people, it was not something that could be achieved with brute force alone. If he was overbearing and killed at every turn, it might have the opposite effect. Just like that, under the leadership of God King Luoho, all the work and operations of the Myriad Demon Alliance proceeded in an orderly manner. As time went by, more and more empires, regions, and forces joined the 10,000 Demon Alliance and bowed their heads. The 10,000 Demon Alliance's strength continued to grow, and so did the number of members. However, God King Luoho did not blindly increase the number of members. When he recruited members, he carefully selected and tested them. Those who were able to join the 10,000 Demon Alliance were all elites with extraordinary strength and loyalty. In a short 3 months, the 28 regions in the northwest of the Star Source continent all belonged to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. In this region, there were hundreds of empires, thousands of forces, and more than 100 billion people who were willing to submit to the 10,000 Demon Alliance. After all, this was the territory of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. It was the headquarters of the 10,000 Demon Alliance that had been operating for hundreds of years. In the process of taking over this region, the 10,000 Demon Alliance faced the least resistance. There were basically no killings or battles. However, everyone knew that the territories that the 10,000 Demon Alliance was about to take over would not be so smooth. After all, there were 72 regions in the Star Source continent that had previously been loyal to the Xuanji Grotto Heaven and treated the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor as their master. Even if the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had been defeated and fled the Dragon Realm, the 10,000 Demon Alliance's control of the Star Source continent was a foregone conclusion. However, there were still many loyal supporters of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor in the 72 regions. Regardless of whether it was a conspiracy, an open conspiracy, a military conquest, or negotiations, the 10,000 Demon Alliance had to use all sorts of methods to successfully take over the 72 regions. Of course, these were all matters that the Luo Ho Supreme Being and the other elders had to worry about. Ever since Ji Tianxing returned to the 10,000 Demon City, he had entered a secret chamber to cultivate in seclusion. He had not shown his face since. Of course, the Luo Ho Supreme Being would not trouble him with such tedious matters. Previously, he had been leading the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers in a battle of wits and courage against the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. After that, he had fought a few thousand rounds with the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor in the Void. He had used up a lot of his divine power. In fact, he was already exhausted. He had only been holding on with his strong will. After returning to the 10,000 Demon City, he entered a secret chamber to recuperate in the distorted space-time. Now, 3 months had passed in the outside world. He had been cultivating in the distorted space-time for 12.5 years. In these 12.5 years, not only had he healed his injuries and recovered his divine power, he had also strengthened his foundation of the divine Tao. The Taoist rhyme that he had absorbed from the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor had completely integrated into his body. It had become his own Taoist rhyme. This had allowed his strength to reach a new level. His battle prowess had also increased exponentially. Other than that, he had also cultivated the heaven-punishing divine art and various mystiques. This had allowed his cultivation base to increase further. He was steadily approaching the 9th tier of the God King realm. After cultivating in seclusion for so long, he had finally ended his cultivation and came out. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Yun Yao was sitting beside him. She was meditating silently, as if she had been waiting for him. Sensing that he had ended his cultivation, Yun Yao also stopped meditating. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Ji Tianqing looked at Yun Yao and asked first, "Yao Yao, you have been waiting for me. Is there something you want to tell me?" Yun Yao nodded and said calmly, "I only ended my seclusion a year ago. I was worried about your safety in that matter. That's why I came to guard you." "That's right. Has the matter at the Xuanji Grotto Heaven been settled?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "It has been settled. The Gold Origin Dragon Emperor was severely injured. He has escaped to the extraterritorial galaxy. He will probably hide and recuperate for a few hundred years. We have killed all the God Kings and God Monarchs under him. Now that the Star Source continent is stable, the 10,000 Demon Alliance is gradually taking over the various regions. It will take a few decades." After pausing for a while, he asked, "Yao Yao, do you want to ask about Wuhan?" Chapter 3843. Ji Tianqing's guess was correct. Compared to him, the father, Yun Yao, the mother, was the one who was most worried and wanted to find her son the most. In Yun Yao's opinion, whether or not they supported the Myriad Demon Alliance and successfully seized the position of Overlord was not that important. Finding Wuhan as soon as possible was the most important thing. She looked at Ji Tianqing and said in a serious tone, "Tianqing, actually, even if you don't say it, I understand your thoughts and plans. Even though you once lived in the God realm for hundreds of years and had your own forces, your forces have been destroyed. But your forces have already been destroyed, and your former subordinates and supporters are in disarray. The casualties are uncountable, and your enemies have become the 5 God Emperors, who control the entire God realm. You want revenge very much, but before you have the confidence to kill the 5 God Emperors, it will be very difficult for us to establish ourselves in the God realm. So, you want to establish a place in the God realm, build a home, and use it as our harbor and backing. Even if you can't defeat the 5 God Emperors, you can at least take us back to the Star Source continent in the Dragon realm, recuperate here, and plot to develop." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a gratified expression, "All this time, you have been the one who understands my intentions the most. That's right. I have always wanted revenge, and I have also been working hard for it. But the closer I am to the peak of the God King realm, the more I feel how powerful and terrifying the God Emperor realm is. I have never had the confidence to face one of the God Emperors head on. So before I start my revenge, I want to build a home in the Dragon realm and use it to settle you and everyone else. Only by ensuring everyone's safety can I go to the God realm without any worries and find the 5 God Emperors for revenge." When she heard this, Yin Yao held Ji Tianqing's hand and shook her head lightly. "Tianqing, you have always protected us and thought of everything for everyone. And all the dangers and hardships are borne by you alone. We know you want revenge, so we will advance and retreat with you, and we will never back down. We will not let you take revenge on your own. We will do our best to help you achieve your wish. Because we're a family, we're a whole, and we can't lose anyone." The last sentence made Ji Tianqing's heart tremble. He felt a little warm, but also a little sad. He held Yin Yao's hands tightly and nodded solemnly. "Don't worry, I've already thought of the next plan. I have already asked the Black Dragon Emperor to help me inquire about Wuhan's whereabouts. 1 year later, when the Myriad Demon Alliance is safe, I will leave the Star Source continent and look for Wuhan." Yin Yao smiled and nodded. Without saying anything more, she returned to the sacred tree and continued to cultivate. Ji Tianqing stood up and walked around the blood-flame sacred tree to check on everyone's condition. Ji Ku, Wu Shuang, Bai Long, Chao Qingyu, and the others were all healing and cultivating under the blood-flame sacred tree. Everyone's injuries had more or less healed, and their strength was steadily increasing. After so many years of bitter seclusion, except for Wu Shuang and Zhen Hong. Everyone had broken through to the God King realm. Even Xianyu had broken through to the God King realm under Hu Xinyue's guidance a month ago. Seeing this result, Ji Tianxing was very gratified. Therefore, he left the distorted space-time and went to find God King Luoho. 15 minutes later, he saw the busy God King Luoho in the Alliance Master study. In the past few months, the Myriad Demon Alliance had been busy. As the Alliance Master, God King Luoho was naturally the busiest one. Every day, he had to deal with thousands of memorials, check countless messages, and issue countless orders. When he saw Ji Tianxing, he temporarily put down his work and brewed a cup of tea for Ji Tianxing. Young master, you've been in seclusion for so long. Have your injuries and condition recovered? Don't worry, they've all recovered, and my strength has increased. Ji Tianxing nodded and took a sip of the tea. How's the situation recently? Is the takeover of the various domains going smoothly? He knew that God King Luoho's time was tight, so he cut to the chase and went straight to the point. God King Luoho hurriedly reported, "To be honest, young master, the 20-odd domains in the northwest have been unusually smooth. They were previously under the Alliance's control, so there have been no setbacks. However, the few domains that the Alliance is about to take over have not been very cooperative. Although they haven't resisted openly, they've been feigning compliance and making all sorts of excuses. However, young master, don't worry. These are all within our expectations. They're just small matters, and I'm confident that I'll be able to handle them quickly." Ji Tianxing nodded and said earnestly, "As the saying goes, the beginning is always the hardest. It's only been a few months, so don't be impatient. Take it slow. I've long predicted that this would take at least 60 to 70 years to complete." "Young master, you're right." God King Luoho cupped his hands and bowed. Ji Tianxing reminded again, "Now, the domain lords of the 72 domains and the various forces are watching the Alliance's actions closely. After all, they're all very nervous and unsure of the Alliance's attitude and methods. In the process of taking over the next few domains, you must pay attention to the appropriate limits. You must be conciliatory and avoid being too ruthless and overbearing, so as to avoid causing conflict and panic among the other domains. However, you must remember not to be too soft, so as to prevent the other domains from thinking that the Alliance is weak and timid. When it's time to act, you must not be soft. Only then can you intimidate those with ulterior motives. You must remember that the Alliance is the true victor. Our position as the overlord of the Star Source continent was won with our blood and strength." God King Luoho looked at him with bright eyes and finally relaxed his brows, revealing a relieved smile. "Young master is wise. I know what to do now." It was obvious that he had been worried about this matter during this period of time and couldn't make up his mind on how to deal with it. He was also very clear that the process of taking over the next few domains was very important. Not only were the other domains keeping an eye on the Myriad Demon Alliance, but the Myriad Demon Alliance also had to use this process to express their stance and attitude. Now that the young master had helped him make the decision and set the tone, he instantly felt confident and determined. Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. He continued, "I will stay for a year and wait for news from the Black Dragon Emperor. After a year, if nothing unexpected happens to the Star Source continent, I will leave. At that time, you will have to make all the decisions yourself. Don't disappoint me." God King Luoho was stunned and said somewhat anxiously, "Young master, are you leaving so soon? Why not stay for a few more years?" Ji Tianxing waved his hand. "I have something very important that I must do as soon as possible." God King Luoho understood his meaning and didn't try to persuade him anymore. He bowed solemnly and said, "Young master, don't worry. I will complete my task and smoothly take over the Star Source continent. I will have a firm control over it and wait for your return to succeed the position of Dragon Emperor." Chapter 38:44. Ji Tianxing was stunned by God King Luoho's words. Although he had told God King Luoho that he was not interested in the position of Dragon Emperor, God King Luoho was adamant. However, God King Luoho stubbornly insisted on his own view. He always believed that he was the only one who could inherit the throne of Dragon Emperor. Ji Tianxing wanted to explain and persuade him, but he could only swallow his words when he saw God King Luoho's determined eyes. He knew that even if he said it, it would be useless to change God King Luoho's mind. Therefore, he patted God King Luoho's shoulder and said with a smile, "Let's not talk about this for now. In the next few decades, you'll have to work harder." The two chatted for a while, and Ji Tianxing left some minor details before leaving the study. God King Luoho continued to deal with government affairs, while Ji Tianxing returned to the secret room and entered the distorted space-time to continue cultivating. Time flew by. Time passed silently. A year's time passed very quickly. In this year, God King Luoho had followed Ji Tianxing's instructions and used both soft and hard methods to gradually subdue one domain after another. The Myriad Demon Alliance had tried to rope in and appease those who wavered and did not have a firm stance. Together with the general situation and pressure, they had succeeded. As for the few who had a firm stance and were diehard supporters of the Gold Origin Dragon Emperor, the Myriad Demon Alliance decisively used thunderous methods to make an example out of them. This method was indeed effective. Killing a few experts and destroying a few factions had effectively intimidated the other domains. At the same time, it did not arouse public anger or conflict. Under God King Luoho's command, the elders and hall masters of the Myriad Demon Alliance used all their skills to take over 11 domains in a year. Through this year's actions, the Myriad Demon Alliance had also expressed its stance and attitude. The other domains could see the determination of the Myriad Demon Alliance. This played a great role in promoting the following work of incorporation and takeover. At least, the remaining 61 domains understood the Myriad Demon Alliance's determination. They knew that the situation could not be reversed. They could only submit and submit. The only thing they could do was to wrangle and negotiate with the Myriad Demon Alliance for more favorable conditions. Meanwhile, Ji Tianxing, who hadn't shown himself for a year and had been in seclusion in the distorted space-time for 50 years, finally came out of seclusion and appeared. Unfortunately, he had been cultivating in seclusion for 50 years in the distorted space and time, but he still hadn't reached the 9th level of the God King realm. With his current strength, every increase in realm was incomparably difficult. As for the other high God Kings, they would often need thousands or even tens of thousands of years before they could advance by a single level. No matter how monstrous he was, without a huge opportunity, it would be very difficult for him to reach the 9th stage realm within a few decades. Ji Tianxing was not disappointed by this, and he was mentally prepared for it. Of course, although he hadn't broken through to the 9th stage realm, but his foundation in the divine way had become increasingly stable, and his cultivation had also deepened by one-fold. With his current battle prowess, he could do whatever he wanted in the dragon realm without fear of anyone. After coming out of seclusion, Ji Tianxing woke up Yin Yao, Ji Ku, Bai Long, and Qian Yu. He told everyone about his next plan. The situation in the Star Source continent has stabilized, and the Myriad Demon League has taken control of this continent. I have decided to leave and go to the other 4 continents to find all the peak God Kings and find out the whereabouts of Wuhan. What do you want to say? Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and Wu Shuang of course nodded in agreement. Bai Long, Zhen Hong, Chao Qingyu, Yang Baifeng, and the others also had no objection. Ji Tianxing looked at Qian Yu and said, "By the way, Qian Yu, there are only a few clansmen left in the Heavenly Fox clan, and whose Xinyue is the strongest. You can cultivate with her as soon as possible. Why don't you stay in the Myriad Demon League and follow her?" Before he finished speaking, Qian Yu shook his head and said, "Old Ji, who Xinyue has indeed taught me, and I am very grateful to her. But I have already broken through to the God King realm, and I have mastered the Heavenly Fox clan's inherited mental cultivation method and remarkable skills, so it is meaningless to stay. Of course, I will follow you and help you find Wuhan's whereabouts. Don't think about leaving me behind. We have depended on each other for so many years, and we can't be separated." Dependent on each other? Ji Tianxing couldn't help but frown and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This word was too exaggerated. But he also knew that Xianyu was very stubborn and refused to stay, so he stopped persuading him. Since no one has any objection, it's decided. You can do what you need to do. Under the bloody flame sacred tree, Ji Tianxing waved his hand, indicating that everyone was dismissed. Everyone said goodbye and returned to the bloody flame sacred tree to meditate and cultivate. Only Yank and Bai Feng's reactions looked a little strange. Yank stayed and told Ji Tianxing that he wanted to go to the Sword World and live with the Earth Spirit clan. Ji Tianxing nodded and agreed, and sent him into the Sword World. Meanwhile, Bai Feng left the bloody flame sacred tree and stopped in the distorted space-time thousands of kilometers away. He started to use divine techniques to create mountains, forests, rivers, and waterfalls. He also built a divine palace on the mountain peak to serve as his cave abode and residence. Ji Tianxing observed for a few hours and discovered that the mountains and rivers he created were exactly the same as the one he had built on the third level of the Divine Tower. I didn't think that this guy would have such a hobby. He even has requirements for his residence and illusions. Ji Tianxing chuckled and muttered to himself before leaving the distorted space-time. Before leaving, he found Divine King Luoho and bid him farewell. Divine King Luoho had known that this day would come, but when this day finally arrived, he still felt a little sad and reluctant. He and Ji Tianxing had a private conversation in the study for 2 hours. The main topic of their conversation was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Both of them knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had suffered great losses, and he would not be able to recover without resting for 200 to 300 years. In other words, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not be able to return to the Dragon Realm to take revenge on the 10,000 Demon Alliance for the next 300 years. However, Ji Tianxing still needed to know which star zone the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's forces were in. Divine King Luoho knew about this, so he mentioned the Sirius Star Zone and briefly explained the situation in the Sirius Star Zone. Ji Tianxing said that he knew what to do. If he had the chance in the future, he would go to the Sirius Star Zone to eliminate all future troubles. 2 hours later, Divine King Luoho followed Ji Tianxing out of the study. Then, in the plaza outside the Divine Palace, Divine King Luoho and the other elders and Divine Kings bowed in unison and respectfully sent Ji Tianxing off. Ji Tianxing waved goodbye to everyone, turned around, and stepped into the sky. His handsome figure quickly disappeared into the horizon. Divine King Luoho and the others looked in the direction he left in and stood there for a long time before they collected themselves and continued with their work. They knew that no one in the entire Dragon Realm could threaten their young master. They were not worried about their young master's safety. They only had one thing to do, and that was to take over the Star Source continent as soon as possible and not disappoint their young master. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 3845. After leaving the Demon City, Ji Tianxing stayed in the Burial of Heaven and drove the Burial of Heaven to the north. Next, he would rush to the Sky Dragon continent to visit the various peak Divine Kings and search for and investigate Wuhan's whereabouts. If the terrain of the Dragon Realm was displayed on a flat surface and made into a map, the center would be in the center. The upper left corner was the Sky Dragon continent, the upper right corner was the Black Dragon continent, the lower left corner was the Crimson Dragon continent, and the lower right corner was the Holy Dragon continent. The 5 continents were not connected and were separated by the boundless sky sea. Ji Tianxing was currently in the northwest of the Star Source continent, very close to the northwest border of the continent. Therefore, the closest continent to him was the Sky Dragon continent in the upper left corner, northwest. In addition, there were other reasons why he decided to go to the Sky Dragon continent to investigate. After all, that continent was the territory of his master, the Sky Dragon Emperor, and it was also his home that he was very familiar with. Even though Dark North had inherited the position of Dragon Emperor and controlled the Sky Dragon continent for thousands of years, he still wanted to go back and take a look. However, the Burial of Heaven flew for 5 days and 5 nights. When it was about to reach the border of the Star Source continent, Ji Tianxing remembered something. Hundreds of thousands of miles ahead was the boundless blue sky sea. However, he remembered that hundreds of thousands of miles to the right was the famous Sky Rock Mountain. The Sky Rock Mountain that stood among the mountains like a rock spreading its wings was the entrance to the 9 mystical grotto heaven. Since I'm passing by here and won't be coming back for a while, should I go to the 9 mystical grotto heaven and visit the Golden Rock Patriarch to check on Peng Fei's situation? Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a while. He decided to go and take a look. Therefore, the Burial of Heaven changed its route and flew towards the Sky Rock Mountain. It was only hundreds of thousands of miles. The Burial of Heaven arrived at the Sky Rock Mountain very quickly. Swoosh! With a flash, the Burial of Heaven disappeared, and Ji Tianxing appeared in the sky. He stood in the air above the mountain peak, looking at the golden door in the sea of clouds as he muttered to himself. It seems that the Golden Rock race has indeed retreated from the world. Not only has the entrance of the grotto heaven been sealed, they don't even have a guardian guarding the door. There were no guards to report the news, and it was impossible for him to break through the entrance of the 9 mystical cave heaven. He could only take out a communication jade slip and send a message to Peng Fei in the deepest part of the 9 mystical caves. On the summit of a lonely mountain, under an ancient tree with withered yellow leaves, an old man and a young man were still sitting cross-legged on a chessboard with a circumference of 100 feet. Peng Fei's hands formed hand seals, forming a divine seal. He was in the middle of cultivating. On the other hand, Forefather Golden Rock's expression was serene. His voice was calm and distant as he spoke of the profound truths of the great Tao, the essence and truth of the divine Tao. After a year of cultivation, Peng Fei had successfully broken through his shackles and reached the first divine king realm. Old Ancestor Golden Rock was very pleased with this. After Peng Fei broke through, he often preached the Tao to help him consolidate his foundation of the divine Tao. Peng Fei's talent and power of comprehension had improved after breaking through to the divine king realm. Listening to the ancestors preaching and imparting of his experience, his strength was also steadily increasing. At this moment, a spiritual light flew in from the sky, breaking the peaceful atmosphere on the summit. The spiritual light floated in front of Peng Fei, shining with dense divine light. Peng Fei sensed something. He stopped cultivating and opened his eyes. He picked up the communication jade slip and read the message with his divine sense. He looked up at Forefather Golden Rock. Without waiting for him to speak, Golden Rock Patriarch kindly said, "If there's something urgent, you can go and deal with it." Forefather, Peng Fei hesitated, then explained, "It's a message from young Master Long Tian. He's at the peak of Tian Peng Mountain and wants to visit you." Forefather Golden Rock frowned. He thought for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Go and bring him over." "Understood." Peng Fei bowed, then turned and flew away. On the way through 9 mystical cave heaven, he met a few clansmen. In the past, his presence was very low. He was unknown among the younger clansmen and was the type that was looked down upon. But in the past 2 years, he had become the object of envy and respect of many clansmen. First, it was because he was favored by the forefather and cultivated by his side. Second, it was because he had just broken through to the divine king realm not long ago. At that time, it had caused a huge commotion. The elders of the clan had praised him, saying that he would become a great person in the future. Therefore, the clansmen had all bowed to him politely. Their attitude was respectful with a hint of intimacy. Peng Fei nodded calmly and returned the greeting. Then he floated away. After he left, the clansmen had all praised him, saying that he was more mature than before. They said that he had an imposing appearance and extraordinary speech, and that he would become a great person in the future. When they reached the entrance of the cave heaven, Peng Fei cast a spell to open the sealing divine formation and welcomed Ji Tianxing in. Not long after, he brought Ji Tianxing to the peak of the mountain and landed under the ancient tree. "Forefather, young Master Long Tian is here." Peng Fei landed on the chessboard and bowed to Forefather Golden Rock. The Golden Rock patriarch sat cross-legged and looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile. Ji Tianxing took the initiative to bow and greet him. "Greetings, Forefather Golden Rock." Forefather Golden Rock nodded slightly and exchanged a few words with him. Then, he said with a kind expression, "Although this old man did not come out of seclusion, I still heard the news outside. Congratulations, young Master Long Tian." Ji Tianxing naturally knew that he was talking about the Myriad Demon Alliance's complete victory and control of the Star Source continent. Therefore, he bowed and said, "Speaking of which, I should be the one thanking Forefather." This was referring to Forefather Golden Rock's departure before the battle. Both sides knew about it, but did not say much. Ji Tianxing looked at the environment of the mountain peak. There were 3 thatched huts, an ancient tree, and a huge stone chessboard. It even contained the Tao of heaven and earth. He could not help but be impressed. "I didn't expect the Forefather's place to cultivate in seclusion to be so elegant and refined." Then, he looked at Peng Fei with a gratified smile. "It is your great fortune to be able to cultivate by my side. In just 2 short years, you have broken through to the Divine King realm. Congratulations." Peng Fei hurriedly bowed and thanked him, saying that he had benefited a lot from following him. That was why he had broken through today. Then he asked again, "Young Master Long Tian, why have you come to the 9 mystical cave heaven this time?" He thought to himself, "Does young Master Long Tian plan to keep me by his side and continue to guide me in cultivation? If so, should I stay by the Forefather's side or follow young Master Long Tian?" Unexpectedly, Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "I am here to bid farewell." Peng Fei was not the only one stunned. Even Forefather Golden Rock revealed a surprised expression. "Young Master Long Tian, you are leaving the Star Source continent. The situation is not stable yet. Young Master Long Tian is leaving now. Do you really not care about the Dragon Emperor's position?" The grandfather and grandson asked at the same time. They were somewhat in disbelief. Ji Tianxing nodded and explained, "I am going to the Heavenly Dragon continent to find my son, Wuhan. I passed by this place and came to visit. At the same time, I would like to ask the Forefather to help me keep an eye out for related news and clues." Wonderful Book House. Chapter 3846. Ji Tianxing did not explain anything about leaving the Star Source continent and giving up the position of Dragon Emperor. He straightforwardly stated the purpose of his visit and immediately changed the topic. Patriarch Golden Rock pondered for a moment and said solemnly, "I've been in seclusion for many years, so I naturally haven't seen or know about your son. However, I promise you that I can help you ask around and see if other peak divine kings have seen a human youth." "That's great. Thank you, Patriarch. If there's news in the future, I'll definitely thank you." Ji Tianxing hurriedly bowed and expressed his gratitude, and then he left behind 2 transmission jade slips before bidding his farewells and leaving. It was still Peng Fei who sent him out of the 9 mystical caves and watched him disappear into the horizon. When Peng Fei returned to the peak and landed under the ancient tree, he could no longer hold back the questions in his heart and asked Patriarch Golden Rock, "Patriarch, young Master Long Tian is clearly from the dragon race. So why is his son called Ji Wuhin and a human youth?" Patriarch Golden Rock raised his eyebrows and said with a benevolent smile, "You should ask him this question. Why ask me?" Peng Fei smiled awkwardly and said, "This kind of question can't be asked face to face." Patriarch Golden Rock said earnestly, "Anyone who stands out from the masses and achieves great things has their own experiences and stories. If others are willing to say, you'll know. If others aren't willing to say, why do you have to ask and add to your troubles?" "Patriarch, you're right. I understand." Peng Fei hurriedly bowed and did not ask anymore. Soon, the mountain peak regained its silence, and the grandfather and grandson continued to preach and cultivate. After leaving the 9 mystical caves, Ji Tianxing no longer had any worries, so he rode the burial of heaven and left the Star Source continent. Not long after, the burial of heaven was like a bolt of black lightning that streaked across the sky above the boundless sea. The boundless sea was boundless. The azure blue sea looked clear and beautiful, but in reality, It contained numerous unknown dangers. In the dragon realm, the 5 continents were the territory of the demon race, and the boundless sea was the territory of the sea race. The so-called Sea Clan had thousands of branches. Fish, prawns, and crabs that had developed intelligence were the Sea Clan. All sorts of monsters and demons that lived in the sea were also considered members of the Sea Clan. Even though the oceanic race wasn't unified internally and had been constantly fighting since ancient times, they were divided into countless factions. However, in the face of the Yao clan from the 5 continents, the Sea Clan was exceptionally united and worked together. Therefore, the Endless Sky Sea was a forbidden zone for ordinary Demon Clan people. It was the most dangerous place. In the entire Dragon Realm, only divine king powerhouses had the guts and qualifications to cross the Sky Sea and roam the various continents. Of course, no matter how dangerous Tianhai was or how savage the sea folk were, it was not a problem for Ji Tianxing. When the Burial of Heaven sword crossed the sky, it was like a bolt of black lightning, extremely fast. Ordinary members of the Sea Tribe would not be able to discover it at all. Only High Divine Lords and Divine King realm members of the Sea Tribe would be able to sense the trajectory of the Burial of Heaven's sword. And members of the Sea Tribe at this level of strength naturally understood how terrifying the Burial of Heaven's sword was. They did not dare to pursue or surround it, and they could not catch up at all. The Heaven's Burial sword flew for 20 days in a row, but it was calm and tranquil. Ji Tianxing had been staying in the sword world, cultivating in the distorted space-time of the Divine Pagoda. Although the journey was boring, he could use this time to focus on cultivating in seclusion. The distance between the Star Source continent and the Heavenly Dragon continent was not too far. With the speed of the Burial of Heaven's sword, it only needed a month to cross the Sky Sea and land on the Heavenly Dragon continent. In other words, the Burial of Heaven's sword was currently in the depths of the Sky Sea, the most dangerous region. In another 10 days, it would reach the Heavenly Dragon continent. At this moment, something happened in front of him. About 60,000 miles away, on the boundless blue sky sea, there was actually a sky full of divine light flashing, and there were also deafening sounds of collisions and explosions. There was also a violent force, wrapped in fragments of divine light, forming a 5-colored shockwave that spread over the sea. Tens of thousands of miles of the sky sea was shaken, creating huge waves that were hundreds of feet high, and water splashed everywhere. The divine power in the air was abnormally chaotic, and it was filled with a faint smell of blood. When the Burial of Heaven noticed this, it determined that there was a large number of experts fighting in front of it. It immediately sent a telepathic message to Ji Tianxing, reporting the situation, and asked, "Should we go around?" Ji Tianxing's cultivation was disturbed, so he simply left the Divine Pagoda and appeared in the sword world. He replied, "No need to avoid. Let's go and see what's going on." He thought to himself, are the Sea Tribe forces killing each other, or is it a war between the Sea Tribe and the Sea Tribe? Logically speaking, this area was the hinterland of the Sea Tribe forces, and the Sea Tribe should not easily enter. The Burial of Heaven's sword flew forward without slowing down, and soon approached the battlefield. When they were 10,000 miles away, Ji Tianxing could clearly see the situation on the battlefield. He saw that there were at least 10,000 elite Sea Tribe soldiers on the surface of the sea, with huge waves, and they were fiercely surging and charging. There were whales and flying fish that were as large as mountains, and all kinds of evolved and mutated octopuses, giant crabs, sharks, and demons. They waved their knives, forks, and halberds, and opened their bloody mouths to scream. There were also tens of thousands of seabirds, spreading their huge wings, extending their sharp claws and beaks, circling and diving in the sky. Although the Sea Tribe looked ugly and ferocious, they were well-trained and well-trained. They knew when to advance and retreat, and under the command of many divine lord generals, they constantly narrowed the encirclement and released fierce killing moves. And the one being besieged by the 10,000 Sea Tribe soldiers was a group of close to 1,000 demons. Most of the demons were in human form, wearing armor and holding swords and spears, and it was obvious that they were a regular army. Although most of them were heavily injured, their bodies were covered in blood and wounds. But they were still tenaciously holding on, resisting the fierce attacks of the Sea Tribe army. Although the situation was precarious, the situation was still ambushed from all sides, and death was certain. But the Sea Tribe army still did not give up hope and was still fighting a bloody battle, not surrendering and begging for mercy. On the surface of the sea, there were still many corpses of the Sea Tribe and Sea Tribe, as well as many fragments of divine warships and warships. The surging sea water was also dyed red by endless blood, and it emitted a thick smell of blood. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing frowned, somewhat surprised. The Sea Tribe and the Sea Tribe are fighting? That Sea Tribe army should be from the Heavenly Dragon continent. Why would they enter the hinterland of the Sea Tribe forces? Thinking so, Ji Tianxing felt that there was something strange about this. After observing for a while, he found that among the leaders of the Sea Tribe army, there were 3 Sea Tribe generals whose performance was the most outstanding. There was a strong and burly middle-aged man, wearing golden armor and a helmet. This person was transformed from a flood dragon, and he had the strength of a middle divine king. There were hundreds of wounds on his body, but he was still fighting a bloody battle, taking the lead to charge, desperately trying to break out of the encirclement. The other 2 lower divine King Sea Tribe generals should be his assistants, and they were also fighting with their lives on the line. It was the powerful battle strength and tenacious charge of these 3 Sea Tribe divine kings that could block the encirclement of the Sea Tribe army and delay the annihilation of the entire army. Chapter 38:47. Although the Flood Dragon General and the 2 Demon Deputy Generals charged forward without any regard for the cost, the Sea Tribe army outnumbered them by more than 10 times. Moreover, the general of the Sea Tribe army was a middle-level godly king and 3 lower-level godly kings. As time passed, the number of demons decreased rapidly. Soon, the entire army would be wiped out. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing decided to help. He did not have any thoughts of helping Tianxing or upholding justice. He was just curious and wanted to know the reason. At the same time, he admired the Flood Dragon General and did not want to see him die here. As a peak godly king, he could do whatever he wanted without much consideration. Swoosh! The Burial of Heaven's sword that was hidden in the sky suddenly shone with golden light and turned into a giant sword that was 10,000 feet tall. The Burial of Heaven's sword that suddenly appeared was like a golden sun hanging high in the sky. The tens of thousands of members of the Sea Tribe and the 800 soldiers of the Demon Clan who were fighting above the sea were all shocked. The battle also paused for a moment as countless people looked up at the sky. In the next moment, the golden light shone brightly. Tens of thousands of golden sword lights poured down like a storm. Swish! 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 As the sword rain fell, a terrifying pressure and sword intent descended. The 10,000 Sea Tribe soldiers were terrified, and their formation was in chaos. Everyone knew that the might of the rain of swords was extremely terrifying, and it could instantly obliterate the army into dregs. As for the 800 demon soldiers, they were neither panicked nor angry. Instead, they all smiled as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. Many of the Monster Clan warriors even raised their heads to the sky and laughed out loud. They roared in a particularly heroic manner. "Sea race scum, you can't escape. Ha ha!" The demon soldiers did not know that the tens of thousands of sword lights had locked onto the Sea Tribe army and would not kill them. They only felt that if such a terrifying sword rain fell, the entire sea region would be destroyed. Apart from the godly king experts, everyone would be killed by the sword lights. They were already going to die. It was not a loss for them to die with the Sea Tribe army. However, what happened next left all the demon race soldiers dumbfounded. Pung pung pung. Tens of thousands of golden sword lights seemed to have grown eyes, and they locked onto the Oceanic Tribe's army and bombarded them. Following a deafening explosion, blood splattered in the air above the sea, and countless pieces of debris splashed out. At least 6,000 members of the Sea Tribe were instantly killed by the golden sword radiance. On the other hand, the 800 demon soldiers were safe and sound. None of them had been struck by the sword. There were still more than 20,000 sword lights left in the sky. They circled around for a while, and then continued to attack the remaining members of the Sea Tribe. Only then did the demon ray soldiers come to their senses and burst into cheers of excitement. "It's an expert from our demon clan." "Great! An expert has come to our rescue. We don't have to die." Countless demon soldiers, whose faces were covered in blood and wounds, cheered in hoarse voices, expressing the excitement and joy of surviving the disaster. General Jiao Long and the other generals were also moved to tears. They bowed to the golden sword in the sky to express their gratitude. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of members of the Sea Tribe army were killed by the sword radiance. Only 2,000 of them survived. The generals of the Sea Tribe were shocked and furious. Many of the generals roared angrily and wanted to attack the giant sword in the sky. However, the leading general of the Sea Tribe, the middle-level godly king Golden-Scaled Shark, ordered a retreat and escaped with the surviving soldiers. Ordinary soldiers did not know the power of the golden sword, but he knew. The divine power and sword essence of the giant sword made him fearful, and he could not resist at all. He knew that the owner of the giant sword was definitely an upper-level godly king with terrifying power. Under such circumstances, he could only give the order to retreat. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the blink of an eye, the 2,000 surviving Sea Tribe soldiers merged into the blue sea and disappeared without a trace. Ji Tianxing did not chase after them, and the 800 demon soldiers did not chase after them either. They all collapsed to the ground in exhaustion, gasping for breath. The leader, General Jiao Long, led the other 18 generals to bow to the giant golden sword despite their severe injuries. Thus, Ji Tianxing put away the burial of Heaven's sword and appeared in the sky. Swoosh! He descended from the sky and landed in front of everyone. After the generals saw his appearance, they became more excited and bowed again to thank him. "Senior, thank you for your help. We can't thank you enough. We will remember Senior's kindness for the rest of our lives. May I know Senior's name and honorific title? We will definitely report to the region leader and thank you." These low-level godly kings and upper-level godly lords were obviously the mainstays and leaders of their respective regions. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said calmly, "Everyone else, leave and treat the injured." After that, he pointed at the leading general and said, "You stay. I have something to ask you." The demon generals accepted the order and hurriedly returned to the crowd to treat the injured. The leading general did not care about his injuries and hurriedly bowed and said, "Senior, if you have any questions, I will definitely tell you everything I know." This general was a middle-aged man in golden armor. Ji Tianxing was only a white-robed young man, but the other party called him senior and was very respectful. It seemed a little strange, but no one thought it was strange. After all, strength was respected in this world. Many experts and old monsters who had lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years liked to pretend to be young after they transformed. Everyone was already used to it. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and shot out a ray of divine light that enveloped the Flood Dragon General. Then, the blood on the Flood Dragon General's body quickly dissipated, and the dense wounds healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. He was originally very tired and weak, but after absorbing the divine light, he was immediately energized and much more relaxed. "Senior, thank you for treating me." The Flood Dragon General bowed again and thanked him. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and asked, "Who are you? Why did you barge into the Sea Tribe's hinterland and fight with them?" The Flood Dragon General bowed and said with a gloomy expression, "Senior, this is a long story. If you really want to know, please listen to me patiently. My name is Long Xiang, one of the southern generals of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. This matter started 10 years ago. The southern general named Long Xiang roughly explained the cause and process of the matter to Ji Tianxing. Although it was a simple introduction, it was close to 10,000 words and took a quarter of an hour. Ji Tianxing was not in a hurry and listened patiently. After Long Xiang finished speaking, he understood the cause and effect of this matter. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 3848. The cause of this matter started 10 years ago. The southeast border of the heavenly dragon continent had been peaceful for more than 200 years. But 10 years ago, many sea tribe forces appeared at the southeast border and constantly attacked the various regions. These sea tribe not only killed the demon clan people, but also plundered the coastal cities and various cultivation resources. They also caused many disasters. The various territorial lords at the border ordered strict defense and also sent out armies to encircle the invading sea tribe. But the sea tribe was very cunning. They did not invade on a large scale, but they were very flexible and flexible. The various territorial lords worked hard for 6 to 7 years, but still could not stop the invasion of the sea tribe. Instead, in those 6 to 7 years, the people of the various regions suffered heavy casualties and huge losses. This caused a few regions at the border to be in a state of panic. The people were uneasy and fled on a large scale. The situation became more and more serious. The few territorial lords could not solve the problem and could only seek help from the heavenly dragon divine palace. When the Dragon Emperor North Sea received the news, he was very angry and took it seriously. But without finding the culprit, the heavenly dragon divine palace's army was useless. Before the army reached the various regions at the border, the sea tribe retreated and went into hibernation. After the heavenly dragon divine palace's army left, the sea tribe forces made a comeback and increased the burning, killing, and looting. Helpless, the Dragon Emperor North Sea decided to send 2 southern conquering generals and a group of personal guards to the various regions at the border to investigate. The heavenly dragon divine palace had 9 southern conquering generals, and Long Xiang was one of them. He was ordered by the Dragon Emperor North Sea to the southeast border's Long Sea region to investigate the culprit. Only by finding the real culprit, the heavenly dragon divine palace would send an army to eliminate them. Only then would they be able to quell the flames of war once and for all. Long Xiang was ordered to the Long Sea region and had been investigating for 3 years. During this period, he had personally investigated many clues and made great progress. Not long ago, he summarized all the clues and was about to find the culprit. But he lacked 2 crucial clues. He had to enter the hinterland of the sea tribe and risk his life to obtain conclusive evidence. But he did not expect that when he led 3,000 elite soldiers into the hinterland of the sea tribe, the other party would know their route. Before he reached the target area, he was intercepted and besieged. Ji Tianxing understood the situation after that, even without Long Xiang's explanation. 3,000 soldiers fought a bloody battle, but they were besieged by more than 10,000 sea species soldiers, and they suffered heavy casualties. If it wasn't for Ji Tianxing coincidentally passing by and lending a hand out of kindness, the Flying Dragon Special Forces and the 3,000 soldiers would have been wiped out and buried in the ocean. After understanding the cause of the matter, Ji Tianxing frowned. There were some doubts in his mind. However, he temporarily suppressed his doubts and left them for later. The 800 or so demon soldiers who had survived had already cleaned up the battlefield and treated their wounds. The 18 generals organized their troops and were about to lead everyone back. As the commander-in-chief, Long Xiang had to lead everyone away from Sky Sea and return to Sky Dragon Continent as soon as possible. Although they suffered heavy casualties this time, they did not complete the mission perfectly. But it wasn't like he didn't gain anything. At least he had a suspect and some valuable evidence. Chua, Long Xiang took out a divine warship and let more than 800 soldiers board it. Then he returned to Ji Tianxing and bowed to bid farewell. Senior, thank you again for saving my life. I will definitely report this matter to the Dragon Emperor. Oh, right. After talking for so long, I still haven't asked for your name? Ji Tianxing said calmly, Divine King Tianxing. Long Xiang remembered this name and said sincerely, Thank you, Divine King Tianxing. I will definitely report this matter to the Dragon Emperor. By the way, may I ask where Senior is planning to go? Ji Tianxing did not hide it. He smiled and said, I came from Star Source Continent and am on my way to Sky Dragon Continent. Long Xiang was instantly energized. He said with a face full of smiles, "So you're going the same way as us? That's great. May I have the honor of inviting you to come along?" Seeing his sincere tone and attitude, Ji Tianqing nodded and agreed. It's still very far from Sky Dragon Continent. All of you are heavily injured. If you encounter the Sea Tribe again, you'll be in trouble. Since that's the case, I will go with you. Long Xiang understood this. Seeing him nod, he was even more excited and happy. He quickly bowed and thanked him. That's great. With you, those Sea Tribe bastards will not dare to invade us. Thus, Ji Tianqing boarded Long Xiang's divine warship and flew to Sky Dragon Continent. Along the way, more than 800 soldiers stayed in the divine warships and quietly recuperated from their injuries. Long Xiang was in charge of steering the divine warship. He could not go into seclusion to heal his injuries. He could only endure his injuries. Ji Tianqing accompanied him in the cabin. Occasionally, he would cast a spell to heal his injuries and restore his divine power. At the same time, he would chat with him and ask for information. He had already decided to go to Sky Dragon Continent to meet the Dragon Emperor, North Sea. Not only did he want to ask for information from North Sea, but he also wanted to use North Sea's power to contact other peak divine kings to find Wu Hen. Now, he was chatting with Long Xiang to find out more about Sky Dragon Continent and information about North Sea. Other than the North Sea Dragon Emperor, who are the other peak divine kings on Sky Dragon Continent? Ji Tianqing sat on a jade chair and asked casually. Long Xiang replied honestly while steering the divine warship, "There is only one peak divine king. That is the Green Phoenix Elder of Shang-Qing Grotto Heaven. He reached his peak 800 years ago." The Green Phoenix tribe was one of the 7 great demon clans. The Green Phoenix Elder was an elder who had been famous for more than 20,000 years. He had always been a 9th heaven divine king. When Qin Shin was in Sky Dragon Continent, he was not unfamiliar with the Green Phoenix Elder. He knew that the elder lived in seclusion in the Grotto Heaven. He was very low-key and was not good at fighting for fame. He was also very respectful to the Sky Dragon Emperor. Is there no other peak divine king other than the Green Phoenix Elder in the past 1,000 years? For example, the great sage Lu Wu of the Green Lightning Grotto Heaven? Ji Tianqing asked calmly. Sky Dragon Divine Palace was the overlord of Sky Dragon Continent. The other 3 top forces were Shang-Qing Grotto Heaven, Green Lightning Grotto Heaven, and North Sea Dragon King Palace. The great sage Lu Wu of the Green Lightning Grotto Heaven was also a 9th heaven divine king elder. Long Xiang shook his head and smiled bitterly. How can a peak divine king appear so easily? There are less than 20 peak divine kings in the entire dragon realm. This is the number that has been accumulated over the past 30,000 years. However, the imperial tutor has improved rapidly in the past 1,000 years. He should be the expert closest to becoming a peak divine king. Ji Tianqing frowned and asked doubtfully, Imperial tutor? Which imperial tutor? Long Xiang explained. Of course, it is the imperial tutor of Sky Dragon Divine Palace. He is the 2nd most respected expert in Sky Dragon Continent. He is the sage who has educated millions of people. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3849. Long Xiang's words made Ji Tianqing frown even more. He asked in a low voice, only the empires of the various regions have this position. Since when did the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace have the position of imperial tutor? Long Xiang smiled and explained patiently, Senior, the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace did not have this position in the past. However, 1,000 years ago, after the Dragon Emperor ascended the throne, he issued a decree to appoint his uncle as the imperial tutor. After listening to his explanation, Ji Tianqing understood that the position of imperial tutor was appointed by Dark North. Back in the North Sea Dragon King Palace, Dark North was the palace master, and his uncle, the Ice Dragon King, had always supported him. Later on, with his uncle's help, he inherited the position of Dragon Emperor and controlled the Heavenly Dragon Continent. Dark North respected the Ice Dragon King very much, so he appointed the position of imperial tutor to show his respect. Since Dark North was the Dragon Emperor, he had the freedom to appoint the position. Even if it was different from the previous Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, Ji Tianxing had nothing to say. Therefore, he did not dwell on this issue and asked, "You said that the Sea Tribe has been troubling the Heavenly Dragon Continent for many years, and there is no solution to it." Long Xiang nodded and said angrily, "Ever since the Dragon Emperor ascended the throne, the Sea Tribe has been causing trouble. In the past 1,000 years, the Sea Tribe has divided into many groups and frequently attacked the borders of the continent. They burn, kill, plunder, and commit all sorts of crimes. Moreover, they're cunning and flexible, causing the region lords of the various territories to be helpless against them and suffer unspeakably." Ji Tianxing frowned, but 1,000 years ago, the Sea Tribe had been obedient in the Heavenly Sea. They did not dare to cause trouble. Why did the Sea Tribe become so rampant after Dark North became the Dragon Emperor? Long Xiang could only smile bitterly and explain, 1,000 years ago, the Heavenly Dragon Emperor ruled the continent. Who dared to invade the Heavenly Dragon Continent? Our Dark North Dragon Emperor was not a peak divine king, so his deterrence was greatly reduced. Long Xiang was the general of the Southern Expedition, a general under the command of the Dark North Dragon Emperor. Of course, he wouldn't dare to speak ill of the Dark North Dragon Emperor. In fact, Ji Tianxing could guess the reason without further explanation. Firstly, Dark North wasn't strong enough. He didn't have much of a deterrent force, so the Sea Tribe didn't respect him. Secondly, Dark North had only ascended the throne for a short period of time, and he was too gentle and benevolent. He wasn't decisive enough, and the Sea race despised him even more. Never would I have imagined that Master's successor would be such a failure. Ji Tianxing was a little disappointed as he muttered in his heart. Since he had nothing to do, he talked to Long Xiang about what happened before. The regions at the southeastern border have suffered heavy losses. Among them, the Shanghai region has suffered the most. Over the past 10 years, more than 10 million people have been killed or injured. Did you manage to find out which of the Sea Race's forces did it? Long Xiang nodded and said angrily, "There are 4 Sea Race forces near the southeast border of Tianhai. They have trillions of people and countless elite soldiers. Even though I don't have any conclusive evidence yet. But according to the clues I found before, I can basically confirm that it was the Trench Department who did it. Among the 4 forces, the Trench Department is ranked first and has the strongest foundation. Its leader is the Aurora Electro Mother. It is said that she is a 9th degree divine king. She has over 100 divine kings, close to 20,000 divine monarchs, and close to 10 million elite soldiers." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly. "So, when you return to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace this time, you will report to the Northern Underworld Dragon Emperor and request for troops to attack the Trench Department." Long Xiang's eyes dimmed as he shook his head. "I'm only responsible for investigating the clues and reporting the results to the Dragon Emperor. As for His Majesty's decision, it is not something I can guess. Of course, His Majesty has always been diligent and loved the people. He is very angry with the Sea Race's repeated attacks and is very concerned about the situation of the people. He should. This will depend on the Imperial Tutor's opinion and the outcome of his discussion with the Dragon Emperor. I hope to lead the troops and take revenge on the Trench Department." Ji Tianxing heard some clues and asked with a frown, "You mean, not only does the Northern Underworld respect the Imperial Tutor, he also relies heavily on him when handling government affairs? What decision does the Northern Underworld have to discuss with the Imperial Tutor?" Long Xiang quickly shut his mouth and begged with a bitter smile, "Senior Tianxing, this is not what I said. Please don't talk about it anymore. As a subject, how would I dare to talk about His Majesty and the Imperial Tutor?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows. He knew that Long Xiang was overstepping his boundaries by discussing this topic, so he did not make things difficult for him. Next, he chatted with Long Xiang and asked about the situation in the Heavenly Dragon Continent. Of course, they talked about some seemingly unimportant matters. At least, it did not involve the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, the Dragon Emperor, the Northern Underworld, or the Imperial Tutor. Long Xiang was happy to answer and did not hide anything. The two of them chatted along the way, and the atmosphere became more and more harmonious. Other than being grateful to Ji Tianxing, Long Xiang also felt a sense of trust and intimacy. Ji Tianxing also understood the current situation in the Heavenly Dragon continent through the scattered information. The current Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace could be described as weak for a long time. The Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace's deterrence and influence in the Heavenly Dragon continent could not be compared to 1,000 years ago. Not only were the surrounding sea tribes rampant, but they also showed no respect to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. Even many of the territorial lords and top forces were not afraid of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace and acted unreasonably. The respect the people had for the Dragon Emperor and the Northern Underworld was also rather weak. In fact, many people were disappointed in him and had some complaints. Northern Underworld was also aware of the current situation, but he was powerless to change it. He could only hope to be magnanimous and love the people and influence them subtly. His own strength and prestige were not enough, and the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace's forces were not strong enough. Therefore, he could not make a big fuss and forcefully take control of the Heavenly Dragon continent. He could only try to persuade them gently. Apart from that, Ji Tianxing also came to a conclusion from the scattered information he had gathered. Northern Underworld had too much respect for the Imperial Tutor. In other words, the Imperial Tutor's position was too high and his power was too great. He had interfered too much in government affairs. If the Imperial Tutor was really a sage or a strategist with great talent and vision, it would be acceptable. At least with his help, Northern Underworld could grow rapidly and gradually take control of the Heavenly Dragon continent. But the reality was not so. The Imperial Tutor's character and ability were also somewhat difficult to explain. Ji Tianxing could analyze this, but he did not take it to heart. After all, he was only here to find the whereabouts of his son and to revisit the old places and reminisce about the past. He was not here to fight for power or to seize the position of the Dragon Emperor. Why should he care so much? Unknowingly, half a month passed. Long Xiang's divine warship safely sailed out of the Heavenly Sea and returned to the Changhai Sea at the southeast border. After arriving at the Changhai Sea, everyone had to go their separate ways. More than 800 demon soldiers were under the command of the Changhai Sea Lord. They had to report back to the territorial lord's manor. Long Xiang and 2 deputy generals had to continue north to report back to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. Chapter 3850. Outside a certain city in the Long Sea region, in the sky above the green grassland, Long Xiang, Ji Tianxing, and 2 deputies stood on the deck of the divine warship, watching the 800 soldiers leave. Only when the figures of the soldiers disappeared into the horizon did they retract their gazes. Long Xiang looked at Ji Tianxing and cupped his fists. Senior Tianxing, we will be returning to the Divine Palace to report to the Dragon Emperor. The mountains are high and the rivers are long. We will meet again. Wait a moment. Before Long Xiang could leave, Ji Tianxing interrupted him. Long Xiang was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled awkwardly and said, Senior, do you have any other instructions? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said, You are returning to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. I am also going the same way. Let's continue. Not only was Long Xiang stunned, but the 2 deputies also looked at each other. Senior, you're also going to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace? Yes, Ji Tianxing replied. Long Xiang's expression was a little strange. He was bewildered. After hesitating for a moment, he mustered up his courage and asked, May I ask, Senior, why are you going to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace? I'm going to pay a visit to Dark North. I have something important to ask him. Ji Tianxing replied indifferently. Long Xiang and the 2 deputies' expressions became even more strange as they looked at him from head to toe. If it was someone else, they would have already spoken rudely. But Ji Tianxing was their savior. Long Xiang could only suppress his ridiculousness and asked with a bitter smile, Senior, are you sure? You are not joking with us? Ji Tianxing looked at him seriously and said with a serious expression, Do I look like I'm joking? Long Xiang was still unsure. He mustered up his courage and asked, Senior, please forgive this junior for speaking bluntly, but why did you come from the Star Source continent to pay a visit to the Dragon Emperor. "Do you know our Dragon Emperor?" Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, "Don't ask about this. When we reach the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, just help me pass a message and report it truthfully." "Oh, all right." Long Xiang hesitated for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. Then, he steered the divine vessel to continue on his journey. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianxing made him put away the divine warship and said, "Your speed is too slow. A journey that should have taken half a month will take you a month." Therefore, Ji Tianxing took out the Sword of Burial of Heaven and brought the three of them into the Sword World to meditate and cultivate. Swish! The Sword of Burial of Heaven turned into a bolt of lightning and streaked across the sky, heading north as fast as lightning. Originally, with Long Xiang's speed, it would take at least a month to reach the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven from the southeast border of the continent. The speed of the Burial of Heaven sword was too fast. It only took 14 days to reach the Grand Mystery Cave Heaven. The night of the 14th day, the Sword of Burial of Heaven stopped in the depths of the mountains, amidst a vast sea of clouds. Above the boundless sea of clouds, there was a bright moon with a circumference of 30,000 meters, shining with a dazzling white light. That was the entrance to the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven. The divine array at the entrance was activated, and there were over 100 divine Lord Guards guarding the entrance. The leaders were two lower god kings. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing frowned slightly as he thought to himself, "The Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace's forces are actually this weak?" Thinking back, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's subordinates were filled with experts. There were over 100 divine lords and 6 god kings guarding the entrance to the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven. There were even 2 upper god kings among them. Compared to the strength of the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven's guards, the quality of the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven's guards was simply too shabby. Swish! Ji Tianxing put away the Sword of Burial of Heaven and appeared in the sea of clouds with Long Xiang and the 2 deputies. When Long Xiang and the 2 deputies saw the Grotto Heaven's entrance, they still felt incredulous and were full of shock and admiration. "Senior is really too amazing. You actually used only 14 days to reach a 1-month journey." Ji Tianxing did not say much as he brought the 3 of them to the entrance. When they arrived near the entrance, the 2 lower god king guards quickly came over to ask for their identities. Long Xiang and the 2 deputies took out their identity badges and explained the purpose of Ji Tianxing's visit. Then, they entered the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven smoothly. The observant Long Xiang noticed that when they arrived at the Grotto Heaven's entrance, Senior Tianxing spoke less and his gaze was a little complicated. Especially after they entered the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven, the 4 of them flew over grasslands, mountains, and lakes. On their way to the depths of the Grotto Heaven, Senior Tianxing became quieter and quieter. He was always looking around, looking at the surrounding landscape and environment with a touch of sadness in his eyes. It did not seem like he was appreciating the environment, but more like he was comparing and reminiscing about something. Long Xiang felt that it was a little strange, but it was not appropriate for him to ask. Not long after, the 4 of them flew for hundreds of thousands of miles and arrived at the depths of the Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven. They landed in a group of magnificent palaces. This group of palaces with a radius of 10,000 miles was the famous Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. It was located in the mountains and was built on top of hundreds of mountains. Hundreds of mountains were arranged in a special formation, forming an invisible heaven and earth divine array that gathered the divine power and spiritual chi of the entire Grotto Heaven. Hundreds of palaces and residences were exquisite and beautiful, emitting a solemn and vicissitude aura. There were more than 30,000 people living in the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, and they were all elites and experts. However, there was not a single peak divine king in the entire Grand Mystery Grotto Heaven. There were only 2 9th-degree divine kings and 12 upper divine kings. In terms of the number of experts, the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace was not even comparable to the Myriad Demon Alliance. When Ji Tianxing flew over the mountains and the palaces, he looked around with a deep gaze. Looking at the familiar mountains, palaces, and residences, countless images appeared in his mind. Memories from more than 1,000 years ago surged into his mind. Everything was the same as before. There were not many changes. Not only did the hundreds of mountains and palaces not change, even the most majestic and sacred Dragon Emperor Divine Palace in the middle of the group of palaces did not change at all. Long Xiang brought him to the top of the palace and stopped. This was the residence of Long Xiang and his 2 deputies. It was only 100 miles away from the Dragon Emperor Divine Palace. Ji Tianxing stood in the night sky and pointed to the left of the Dragon Emperor Divine Palace. He asked Long Xiang, who was living in that Divine Palace now. The mountain that was 100 miles away from the left of the Dragon Emperor Divine Palace was shaped like a sharp sword. It pierced through the clouds and had an extraordinary aura. The peak of the mountain was not spacious. It was only 1,000 feet wide, and only one divine palace was built on it. Long Xiang took a look and quickly introduced, "Senior, that is the Divine Sword Peak. There's only one palace on the peak." It was said that it was called the Divine Sword Palace 1,000 years ago. Later on, the imperial tutor chose the Divine Sword Peak. He did not like the name of the palace and changed it to the Imperial Tutor Palace. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener took it seriously. No one noticed that Ji Tianxing frowned slightly and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Long Xiang pointed to the palace below and said, "Senior, this is my residence. It is late at night. You can stay here and rest for the night. I will report to His Majesty first and then tell him the purpose of your visit. Perhaps you will receive good news tomorrow morning." Chapter 38:51. When they landed in the palace, the guards immediately bowed to them. Long Xiang led Ji Tianxing to the best guest room. After settling Ji Tianxing down, he went to the Dragon Emperor Immortal Palace to report to Dark North. Ji Tianxing was not in a hurry. He sat in the guest room and waited patiently for the news. The Dragon Emperor Divine Palace was brightly lit. There were guards both inside and outside the palace. It was heavily guarded. The Dragon Emperor's study room was still lit. Through the paper window of the study room, a burly figure could be vaguely seen. He was still bent over the table, writing and dealing with government affairs. The guards outside the study room were already used to such a situation. For nearly 1,000 years, His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor, had always been diligent and devoted to his people. He would do everything by himself. No matter what the outside world thought of the Dragon Emperor, at least in the eyes of the guards, the Dragon Emperor was definitely worthy of respect and love. At this moment, Long Xiang came to the study room. He bowed respectfully and reported the purpose of his visit. The guard quickly reported to the Dragon Emperor North Sea. The busy figure in the study room paused for a moment and quickly summoned Long Xiang. Long Xiang stepped into the brightly lit study room, walked to the large purple jade desk, and respectfully kowtowed in front of it. Behind the desk, a middle-aged man in a golden dragon robe with a divine crown on his head put down his work and raised his hand to signal Long Xiang to rise. This Dragon Emperor North Sea was tall and burly. However, he was handsome and his skin was as white as jade. Fortunately, he had purposely kept a beard. Otherwise, he would be a handsome young man. He would not have the majesty of a middle-aged Dragon Emperor. "General Long Xiang, rise." "General, you have been on a mission in the Shanghai region for 3 years. You have worked hard and made great contributions. Come, bring General Long Xiang to a seat." North Sea sat on the armchair and looked at Long Xiang with a smile. Seeing that Long Xiang was injured and his injuries were quite serious, Dark North arranged a seat for him and did not allow him to stand to report. This was obviously a great favor and high regard. Long Xiang was overwhelmed by the favor and quickly bowed to express his gratitude. After the guard brought a chair over, Long Xiang sat down nervously and began to report the results of the investigation to Dark North. In the past 3 years, the Flying Dragon Special Forces had reported many clues to Dark North. However, now that he had returned to the Dragon Emperor Immortal Palace, he had to sort out the information and report it to the Dragon Emperor. Dark North listened patiently. Sometimes, he would nod his head to show his appreciation. Other times, he would ask Long Xiang to explain. All in all, he was satisfied with Long Xiang's performance. He also acknowledged Long Xiang's contribution. However, when the Flying Dragon Special Forces was halfway through his report, the door to the study opened. Chua, a tall figure dressed in a black robe, strode into the study with a strong gust of wind. The person who came was a tall and thin old man. His face was thin and dark, and his eyes were ice blue. His entire body emitted a gloomy and cold aura. The old man in the black robe had the strength of the 9th King Godlayer. He wore a luxurious crown on his head. He had the aura of a superior. Long Xiang stopped reporting and quickly stood up to bow to the old man in the black robe. He said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Highness, Imperial Tutor." Dark North also stood up and bowed slightly. He said, "Isn't the Imperial Tutor resting? Why are you here?" Without a doubt, the old man in the black robe was the Imperial Tutor, the Ice Dragon King. The Imperial Tutor nodded slightly to Dark North and said expressionlessly, "I heard that General Long Xiang had returned to the Immortal Palace. I rushed here to report to His Majesty." Dark North nodded to show that he understood. He sat back in his chair and said, "Since the Imperial Tutor is here, let's listen to General Long Xiang's report." However, the Imperial Tutor did not intend to listen. He turned to look at Long Xiang and frowned. He scolded sternly, "Long Xiang, you got guts. You did not do your job well and made a big mistake. Not only did you not apologize to His Majesty, you even dare to ask for credit?" Long Xiang was stunned. He looked at the Imperial Tutor in confusion. Dark North also frowned and looked at the Imperial Tutor in confusion. He wondered what the Imperial Tutor was trying to do. Long Xiang came back to his senses and clasped his hands towards the Imperial Tutor. He said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, "I have been on a mission in the Shanghai region for 3 years. I have risked my life more than 100 times to collect and investigate all kinds of clues. I have been loyal to His Majesty and have not slacked off at all. I do not dare to claim credit or ask for credit. However, I have a clear conscience. May I know why Your Highness, Imperial Tutor, is so angry?" Dark North was also confused. He did not say anything and looked at the Imperial Tutor, waiting for him to answer. The Imperial Tutor kicked the chair behind Long Xiang and sneered, "You are not asking for credit? There is no place for you in His Majesty's study room." Long Xiang frowned as anger and humiliation rose in his heart. Dark North hurriedly waved his hand and explained, "Imperial Tutor, please calm down. General Long Xiang didn't ask for any credit. I empathized with his loyalty and hard work. That's why I allowed him to sit down and report." Emperor Preceptor flicked his sleeves and stopped talking about this matter. He stared at Long Xiang with a dignified face and shouted, "Long Xiang, let me ask you. You spent so much manpower and resources in the Shanghai Sea for the past 3 years. What's the result? Have you found out who the culprit is? Have you found any solid evidence?" Long Xiang was at a loss for words. He lowered his head and explained, "Although I haven't found the most crucial evidence, based on the clues that I have investigated for 3 years, it is enough to analyze that the culprit is one of the 4 divisions of the South Sea, the Trench Division." "Ha ha! How ignorant and ridiculous!" The Imperial Tutor sneered. "This is related to Your Majesty's dignity and the safety of the continent. You do not have any solid evidence. How dare you come to a conclusion based on speculation? If we start a war with the Trench Division based on your speculation, can you bear the responsibility for the casualties and losses caused?" Long Xiang was speechless again. Before he could say anything, the Imperial Tutor continued, "You have betrayed His Majesty's trust. This is disloyalty. You have spent so much manpower and resources in the Shanghai region for 3 years. You have sacrificed tens of thousands of soldiers. This is incompetence. You have not completed your mission, and you have fled back to the Celestial Palace. You even tried to deceive His Majesty. This is a serious crime." At this point, he turned his head to look at Dark North and asked in a pained tone, "Your Majesty, this old man knows that Your Majesty is magnanimous and benevolent. But you must be careful of these treacherous officials. Do not be deceived by them." Long Xiang is a disloyal and incompetent official. How can you reward him? Only by punishing him severely could the court be revitalized and serve as a warning to others. Your Majesty, please punish Long Xiang in accordance with the law. After saying that, the imperial preceptor bowed deeply to Dark North. Long Xiang was dumbfounded. He did not expect things to turn out this way. Although he was not happy with the imperial tutor's arbitrary behavior, he did not show it. He did not express his dissatisfaction, nor did he openly oppose the imperial tutor. He did not expect the imperial tutor to distort the truth and erase his contributions. He even wanted to punish him. Chapter 38:52. Long Xiang was full of grievances, but he could not defend himself. He was in a very passive position. The imperial tutor was overbearing and aggressive, as if victory was already in his hands. With his identity, position, strength, and methods, it was too easy for him to punish Long Xiang. Seeing that Long Xiang was about to be punished for this, Long Xiang was about to be wronged. Fortunately, Dark North stood up to mediate the situation. He waved his hand and said, "Imperial tutor, please calm down. Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do this?" Ever since this emperor ascended to the throne, General Long Xiang has been following this emperor. For the past 1,000 years, he has been doing his best to complete this task. Even if he did not succeed in this mission, he still managed to find a lot of important clues and information. Imperial Preceptor General Long Xiang has worked hard even if he didn't have any merits. How can I punish him? If that's the case, won't everyone be disappointed? Dark North was very confident in Long Xiang's character. He also thought highly of him. In his opinion, the Imperial Preceptor was being so overbearing. He was nitpicking and purposely suppressing him. However, he could not say this out loud. He still had to take care of the Imperial Tutor's face and dignity. Therefore, he could only bring up Long Xiang's past performance and hope that the Imperial Tutor would not pursue this matter. However, the Imperial Tutor had no intention of letting Long Xiang go. He said firmly, "Your Majesty, it's because you are too kind and think too much about your past relationships that you connive with these treacherous officials, causing them to become more and more rampant. In the long run, not only will your prestige be destroyed, the foundation of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace will also be in danger." Long Xiang was enraged when he heard this. His face was ashen, and he said coldly, "Lord Imperial Preceptor, this general is not worthy of being called a treacherous minister. I believe that I am loyal and have a clear conscience. This is the only way I can live up to your Majesty's expectations. If Imperial Tutor insists on slandering me, I would rather commit suicide to prove my sincerity." Long Xiang had no power to resist the powerful Imperial Tutor. However, he would never grovel and beg for peace, nor would he admit to these unfounded accusations. He would rather die to prove his innocence. The Imperial Tutor looked at him from the corner of his eyes and sneered contemptuously. You can't deny it in front of the evidence, so you resorted to such shameless means? Since you are so stubborn, I would like to see." The more they argued, the more tense it became. If they continued to argue, with Long Xiang's stubborn personality, he might really commit suicide on the spot. Seeing this, Dark North could only pretend to be angry. With a dignified expression, he slammed the table and suppressed the matter. In the end, Dark North wasn't able to give Long Xiang any rewards. In order to appease the Imperial Tutor, Dark North could only take a step back. He verbally reprimanded Long Xiang and fined him 10 years of his salary. Although this punishment was very light, it was neither painful nor itchy. However, a loyal general who had made meritorious contributions and risked his life for the Dragon Emperor ended up like this instead of making any contributions. It was really disappointing. Long Xiang was also filled with grievances. His heart was filled with sorrow. But he understood that the Dragon Emperor was in a difficult situation, and he knew that the Dragon Emperor still trusted and valued him. So he didn't say anything. In this confrontation, the Imperial Tutor won without a doubt. The study returned to silence. Long Xiang continued to report the results, while Dark North and the Imperial Tutor listened attentively. After what happened just now, Long Xiong was in low spirits. His report also became very short and boring. After he finished his report, Dark North gave him a few words of encouragement to comfort him. The imperial tutor was too lazy to listen anymore and waved his hand to chase Long Xiong away. At this moment, Long Xiong hesitated for a moment before he mustered up the courage to say something else. Your Majesty, the oceanic tribe of the Trench Tribe is very sinister and cunning. We don't know how they found out about our plan. Previously, I led 3,000 soldiers into the Trench Tribe's territory to investigate, and we were besieged by the Oceanic Tribe's army. We suffered heavy casualties, and only 800 people were left. We were about to be slaughtered by the Oceanic Tribe's army. At the most dangerous moment, Senior Tianxing passed by the sea and saved us. He killed thousands of the Oceanic Tribe's army in an instant and forced the Oceanic Tribe's army to flee in panic. Long Xiong gave a simple account of what happened. Dark North listened with great interest. His eyes shone with a strange light. He was very interested in the Senior Tianhang that he was talking about. The imperial tutor was expressionless and his eyes were gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. After Long Xiong finished, the imperial tutor frowned and asked in a deep voice, Long Xiong, you actually brought an unknown person into the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace and arranged for him to stay in your residence? What are you trying to do? Do you still have the laws of the Divine Palace in your eyes? Long Xiong was about to explain when Dark North waved his hand and said, Imperial Tutor, please calm down. Young Master Tianxing saved the lives of General Long Xiong and 800 soldiers. General Long Xiong knows how to repay a debt of gratitude. It's normal for you to bring him back. The Imperial Tutor snorted and said no more. Seeing Dark North's attitude, Long Xiong took the opportunity to say, Your Majesty, I didn't bring young Master Tianxing here to repay a debt of gratitude. It's because young Master Tianxing is here to visit you. He has something important to discuss with you. Oh, is that so? Dark North raised his eyebrows and asked doubtfully, But I don't know a deity king named Tianxing. Where did he come from? Does he know me? Long Xiong answered honestly, I only know that he came from the Star Source continent and has something important to discuss with you. I don't know anything else. Maybe you can ask him in person. Without waiting for Long Xiong to finish, the Imperial Preceptor interrupted him with a sneer and scolded, Bastard! A guy with an unknown background wanted to meet the Dragon Emperor? Who does he think he is? And you, Long Xiong, who gave you the right to bring a stranger into the Divine Palace? If that kid has ulterior motives and purposely gets close to the Dragon Emperor, or even tries to assassinate him, can you bear the responsibility? Long Xiong was speechless. He could only say, If someone tries to assassinate His Majesty, I will do my best to stop them. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will protect His Majesty. Humph. The Imperial Preceptor snorted disdainfully. Is your life worth mentioning in the same breath as His Majesty's safety? Long Xiong was speechless and ignored the Imperial Tutor. He bowed to Dark North and begged, I've been with Senior Tianxing all this time. I dare to risk my life for him. Senior Tianxing will never try to assassinate His Majesty. Your Majesty, please grant me the honor of meeting Senior Tianxing. The Emperor's Preceptor hurriedly took a step forward and bowed to Dark North. He rushed to say, Your Majesty, your safety is related to the entire Heavenly Dragon continent. It's also shouldering the life and death of hundreds of millions of people. You can't take any risks, and you can't give the villains any chance to take advantage of you. I suggest that you immediately give the order to expel that person from the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. The Imperial Preceptor's tone was sonorous, and his attitude was very firm, revealing an unquestionable feeling. Even though Dark North felt that it was inappropriate, he couldn't help but hesitate. He was stuck in a dilemma. After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, he said with a guilty face, General Long Xiong, I've ordered my men to prepare a gift for you to thank young Master Tianxing. After that, you can send him away. Chapter 3853. It was obvious that Dark North felt that he had already made the Imperial Preceptor take a step back in the matter of punishing Long Xiong. In that case, there was no need for him to accommodate Long Xiang when it came to the matter of young Master Tianqing meeting him. Since young Master Tianqing was Long Xiang's savior, he would prepare a generous gift for young Master Tianqing. Then, Long Xiang would send young Master Tianqing out of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. It should be a good and reasonable decision. Long Xiang also understood this point. He could not find any fault with Dark North's decision. Even if he was unhappy that he could not help Senior Tianqing, there was nothing he could do about it. He could not continue to pester Dark North and force him to change his mind. Feeling wronged and disappointed, Long Xiang bowed to Dark North and the Imperial Tutor and left the study with a gloomy expression. The Imperial Tutor stayed in the study and complained to Dark North for a long time before leaving angrily. As for the content of his complaints, it was obvious that he was blaming Dark North for being too kind and hated the treacherous officials and rascals for going too far. Usually, it would only take Long Xiang 100 breaths to return to his residence from the Dragon Emperor Divine Palace. However, tonight, it took him half an hour to return. After returning to his residence, he did not immediately go to see Ji Tianqing. Instead, he sat quietly in his room for a long time. 6 hours later, when the sun rose, he stood up and went to see Ji Tianqing. At the same time, the guard commander under the Dragon Emperor's command brought the gift that Dark North had prepared. The guard commander handed the sandalwood box to Long Xiang and left. Long Xiang carried the sandalwood box and went to see Ji Tianqing alone. He wanted to ask the guard to inform Ji Tianqing and invite him to the living room. However, when he entered the living room, he found Ji Tianqing already waiting for him. "Senior Tianqing, why are you here? Did you not rest last night?" Long Xiang was stunned for a moment and asked in a concerned tone. Ji Tianqing smiled and said calmly, "When I heard your conversation with the guard commander, I guessed that you would come, so I waited for you here." Only then did Long Xiang feel relieved. After exchanging a few pleasantries with him, he presented the sandalwood treasure box. "Senior Tianhang, I've already told His Majesty the Dragon Emperor about what happened last night and why you're here. This is a gift specially prepared by the Dragon Emperor to express his gratitude to you." As he spoke, Long Xiang placed the gift box in front of Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing sat in his chair without moving. He didn't even look at the gift box as his lips curled into a smile. He asked, "Baiming doesn't plan on meeting this king, right? After giving this gift box, you will be ordered to send this prince away, right?" Long Xiang's hands froze in midair. He suddenly felt awkward. "Senior, so you've already guessed it?" His face was full of guilt as he smiled bitterly. "Please forgive me, Senior. It is my fault for not being able to help you." Ji Tianqing wasn't disappointed nor angry. He asked calmly, "Is it because Baiming doesn't want to meet this king, or did someone dissuade you?" This. Long Xiang was speechless again. He didn't know how to answer. Although the Imperial Tutor was very dissatisfied with him and deliberately suppressed him. However, this was an internal matter of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. He didn't want Senior Tianqing to know. No matter what, Senior Tianqing was an outsider after all. Moreover, he hadn't known him for long, so he couldn't completely trust him. Most importantly, he didn't want to see Senior Tianqing become enemies with the Imperial Tutor because of this matter. That wouldn't be a good thing for Senior Tianqing. Seeing Long Xiang's expression and reaction, Ji Tianqing guessed the answer. He waved his hand and said, "All right, this king won't ask you anymore to avoid making things difficult for you. How about this? Help this king one last time. Go and report to Baiming that Long Tian is here to visit. Other than that, no matter what happens, it has nothing to do with you." Long Xiang subconsciously nodded and said, "All right, then I'll help Senior one more time. Please wait here for a moment." He had already made up his mind. Even if he would be attacked by the Imperial Tutor and angered the Dragon Emperor, he would help this one more time. After all, Senior Tianqing was his savior. Although he said that he would never forget his kindness, it wasn't his style to not help this small matter. However, when Long Xiang turned around and walked to the door of the living room, he suddenly reacted. He was stunned. He turned around and looked at Ji Tianqing. He asked doubtfully, "Senior Tianqing, you just said your name is Long Tian?" Ji Tianqing nodded. Long Xiang's eyes widened, revealing an expression of shock and disbelief. He asked, "You're the legendary Long Tian from Star Source Continent, the one who defeated the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor?" Ji Tianxing's expression was indifferent as he nodded again. Long Xiang was even more shocked. His blood and heartbeat sped up. He asked with a trembling voice, "It's rumored that you were the only disciple of Dragon Emperor Feng Tian. Is this true?" Ji Tianxing's expression remained unchanged as he continued to nod. "Oh my God!" Long Xiang was completely stunned. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at Ji Tianxing for a long time. He couldn't believe that the mysterious expert who created a miracle, rewrote the history of the Dragon Realm, and snatched the position of Dragon Emperor was actually right in front of him. That's right. The major event that happened in Star Source Continent could be said to be world-shaking. As early as a year ago, the news had spread out of Star Source Continent into several other continents. For the past 3 years, Long Xiang had been active in the southeastern coastal area. Of course, he had heard many rumors. To him, a legendary expert like Long Tian was a high and mighty existence that he could only look up to. He was actually able to travel together with Long Tian for an entire month. This was a great fortune. After a while, Long Xiang finally calmed down. Senior Long Tian has become the Dragon Emperor of Star Source Continent. Now that he has come to Sky Dragon Continent and wants to meet the North Dark Dragon Emperor, he even said that he has something important to discuss. It seems that the matter between the two Dragon Emperors must be related to the situation of the world. It's definitely something big. Long Xiang's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Senior Long Tian, please wait here for a moment. I'll go and report it." After that, he turned and left as fast as he could and rushed to the Dragon Emperor's divine palace. Looking at his expression, Ji Tianxing couldn't help but frown. He muttered to himself, "I didn't say anything." What did he understand? After 20 breaths, Long Xiang was as fast as lightning and appeared outside the Dragon Emperor's study room excitedly. "Reporting to your majesty, I have something important to report." Long Xiang didn't have time to let the guard pass the message. He shouted loudly at the door of the study room. In the study room, the Imperial Tutor was discussing government affairs with North Dark Dragon. Suddenly, they heard Long Xiang's anxious shout. The two stopped talking and frowned. "This bastard. Haven't you chased that person away? How can you be so flustered and make such a big fuss? Where's your decency?" The Imperial Tutor was angry. He turned and opened the door of the study room. He was about to reprimand Long Xiang. Chapter 3854. However, Long Xiang ignored the Imperial Tutor and went straight to Dark North's desk to greet him. After a simple bow, he said in a hurried and forceful tone, "Your Majesty, that Senior Tianhong's real name is Long Tian." "That's right. He's the one who defeated the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and took over the position of Dragon Emperor. He asked me to tell you that he has something important to discuss with you." Long Xiang didn't beat around the bush and explained Long Tian's identity and purpose in brief. The study fell into silence. Dark North and the Imperial Tutor were stunned as they stared at Long Xiang. The Imperial Tutor even forgot to reprimand him. After a long while, Dark North and the Imperial Tutor regained their senses. Their reactions were very different. Long Tian? He's the one who destroyed the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, took over the position of Dragon Emperor, and took over the Star Source Continent? Dark North was filled with shock and excitement. His eyes shone with a bright light. He did not have any relationship with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Of course, he did not think that Ji Tianxing was a traitor. In this world where the strong were respected, he admired Long Tian, who dared to resist and successfully challenged authority. However, the Imperial Tutor frowned. His face darkened and his eyes shone coldly. He was on high alert, as if he was facing a great enemy. He asked in a low voice, "Long Tian? Isn't he the only disciple of the heaven-sealing Dragon Emperor? He came to the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace? What does he want?" Long Xiang was still immersed in shock and excitement. He didn't quite understand what the Imperial Preceptor meant. He subconsciously replied, "Senior Long Tian must be here to discuss something very important with the Dragon Emperor." He said it himself. "Get out." The imperial tutor turned around and glared at Long Xiang. Long Xiang was stunned. He did not understand why the imperial tutor was so angry. However, Dark North realized something and said to Long Xiang, "General Long Xiang, please wait outside the study. I have something to discuss with the imperial tutor. I'll summon you later." Long Xiang didn't know what was good for him, so he could only bow and leave the study. It wasn't until he left the study and stood under the vermilion eaves that he suddenly came to his senses and his expression changed on the spot. Senior Long Tian is the only disciple of the Heaven's Sealing Dragon Emperor. He is also a peak godly king who defeated the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Our Dragon Emperor took over the position of Heaven Sealing Dragon Emperor 1,000 years ago. Could it be that Long Tian has come to his majesty too? Suddenly thinking of this, Long Xiang shuddered and shuddered. At this moment, he suddenly understood why the imperial tutor's expression was so ugly. However, he quickly calmed down and calmed himself down. He muttered to himself, "It shouldn't be possible." Senior Long Tian was not that kind of person, and he would definitely not do such a thing. If he really wants to assassinate the Dragon Emperor and seize the throne, then I can only atone for my sins with my death. But he came here alone. How could he possibly take the risk to assassinate someone? Long Xiang was very nervous. He was afraid that Long Tian was here to assassinate him, but he kept reminding himself to trust Long Tian's character. At the same time, a similar conversation was going on in the study. "Your Majesty, I've said before that Long Tian purposely approached Long Xiang and sneaked into the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. He must be up to no good. He has been plotting against the Heaven's Sealing Dragon Emperor in the Starry Origin Continent. He has wreaked havoc in the Starry Origin Continent and plunged the people into misery and suffering. Now, he has sneaked into the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace to assassinate you and seize the Dragon Emperor's throne. We can't tolerate a villain like him. We must immediately mobilize a large number of troops and kill him on the spot." The imperial tutor was filled with killing intent as he growled. Dark North sat restlessly on the armchair. He frowned and said in a low voice, "Long Tian is the only disciple of the Heaven's Sealing Dragon Emperor. He is also the rightful successor. It's not impossible for him to get rid of me and take back the throne that originally belonged to him." "Yes, it's good that you think that way." The imperial tutor quickly nodded in agreement. Dark North continued, "However, the Heaven's Sealing Dragon Emperor treated me as his nephew. I have met Long Tian a few times, and we have a good relationship. Even if he wants to take back the throne, he can talk to me face to face. Why would he try to assassinate me? Moreover, if he wants to assassinate me, why would he come here alone?" Seeing that Dark North still did not believe him, the imperial tutor became anxious. He said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, have you forgotten? It is said that when Long Tian attacked the Xuanji Grotto, he sneaked in alone. After he entered the Xuanji Grotto, he released thousands of elites from the divine item that he carried with him. That was how he managed to catch the Xuanji Grotto off guard. He might do the same thing again this time. It's too late. I will order the Imperial Guards to gather and close the entrance of the grotto." "Wait." Dark North quickly stopped the imperial tutor. He shook his head and said, "He arrived last night. However, a night has passed. Is there anything unusual in the Heavenly Palace? Furthermore, this emperor believes that with his character, he won't kill us. After all, this is the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. It is the place where he used to live. It is also his master's painstaking effort." The imperial tutor was completely speechless. Seeing that Dark North was so stubborn, he could not help but stomp his feet. But he is a peak divine king. Once he tries to assassinate us, who can stop him? Dark North frowned and thought for a while. He said calmly, "I have no enmity with him. What reason does he have to assassinate me?" "You sigh." The imperial tutor was completely helpless. He was filled with resentment as he left. Bam! The door of the study was slammed shut. His heavy footsteps also left quickly. Long Xiang, who was in the corridor, saw the imperial tutor leave with a pale face. He guessed that the imperial tutor had quarreled with his majesty again. After hesitating for a while, he he mustered the courage to open the door of the study and walked to Dark North's imperial desk. "Your Majesty, Senior Long Tion is waiting in my residence." "Do you think?" Dark North sat on the armchair with his eyes closed. He rubbed his forehead with a complicated expression. Hearing Long Xiang's voice, he waved his hand and said, "You may leave first. I need to think about this carefully." Long Xiang also understood that Long Tion's identity was complicated and special. His Majesty had not made up his mind to see him or not. It was useless for him to stay in the study. He could not force his Majesty to make a decision quickly, right? He could only bow and leave the study. However, Ji Tianxing was still in his residence, waiting for his news. Given the current situation, he was too ashamed to go back and see Ji Tianxing. Therefore, Long Xiang wandered aimlessly outside the Dragon Emperor Immortal Palace. And at this time, the Imperial Preceptor had already secretly given the order to mobilize a large number of Imperial Guards and God King experts to quietly assemble. In a short 2 hours, there were 1,000 High Divine Lord Realm Imperial Guards and more than 30 Divine King experts secretly gathered in a certain palace. Then, under the lead of the Imperial Tutor, they rushed to Long Xiang's residence with murderous intent. Chapter 3855. Although more than 30 God Kings and over 1,000 Imperial Guards were puzzled by the sudden transfer order, they didn't know what to do. They did not understand why the Imperial Tutor would make such a big move when there was nothing wrong with the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. The Imperial Tutor said righteously in the face of everyone's doubts and questions, "Long Tian, the evil thief who brought chaos to the astral source continent, had sneaked into the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace with the help of Long Xiang. This person intends to assassinate the Dragon Emperor. His intention is to be executed. Although the Dragon Emperor is kind and benevolent, we must not let the evil thief's scheme succeed." With his explanation, all the God Kings and Imperial Guards came to an understanding. The Imperial Tutor had been careful when he was gathering the troops. The 1,000 Imperial Guards and 30 God Kings that he had gathered were all old officials of the North Sea Dragon King Palace, or those who had joined the Dragon Emperor 1,000 years ago. None of them were old officials of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace from 1,000 years ago. Although Dark North had taken over the thousands of experts and experts under the Heavenly Dragon Emperor after he succeeded the throne. But the Imperial Tutor had used all kinds of methods to transfer those people out of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace and sent them to different parts of the continent. In short, those thousands of old officials of the Heavenly Dragon Emperor could not be put in an important position, let alone stay in the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace. For the Dragon Emperor, kill. The Imperial Tutor was filled with killing intent as he roared in a low voice. The 1,000 Imperial Guards and the numerous godly kings all roared furiously as well. After that, the Imperial Tutor led the troops to Long Xiang's residence. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Everyone moved quickly. In just 15 minutes, they had landed around the soaring dragon palace and surrounded the entire palace. The God Kings and the Imperial Guards formed a battle formation. They wielded their swords and sabers as if they were ready to fight. The guards of the soaring dragon palace were dumbfounded. They did not understand what was going on. "Everyone, what are you doing? What did our general do wrong? Why did he provoke the Imperial Guards to search his house? Everyone, there must be some misunderstanding." The guards panicked and immediately went to report to the Flying Dragon Special Forces. However, Long Xiang was not in the palace, so they could only report to the 2 deputy generals. There were also 2 more quick-witted bodyguards who wanted to sneak out of the palace and report to the Flying Dragon Special Forces. However, several divine kings discovered them and captured them on the spot, throwing them back to the palace's plaza. The Imperial Tutor swaggered into the palace with a few Imperial Guard commanders and shouted, "We are here on the orders of His Majesty, the Dragon Emperor. We are here to capture the traitor Long Tian. All unrelated personnel are to leave." Hearing that this matter had nothing to do with the Flying Dragon Special Forces, the guards and bodyguards immediately retreated to the side and kept quiet out of fear. However, the Imperial Tutor and a few Imperial Guard commanders entered the palace and searched around for a while, but they did not find any trace of Long Tian. The commanders of the Imperial Guards were enraged. They ordered their men to capture the guards and soldiers and brought them to the square in front of the palace. Soon, over 100 guards and 200 soldiers gathered in the square and lined up neatly. Where is Long Tian? Who can tell me where Long Tianzong is? Anyone who doesn't report, it will be killed without mercy. Anyone who helps Long Tian hide will be punished according to the crime of treason. The commanders of the Imperial Guards held their swords and shouted with murderous intent. The guards and soldiers were confused. They did not know what was going on. Only the two deputy generals had complicated expressions and were inwardly anxious. Soon, the guards guarding the palace's entrance could not withstand the Imperial Guard commander's pressure and interrogation. They told the truth in front of everyone. "Commander, that white-robed young man left just 30 minutes ago. He left through the palace's entrance. We don't know where he went. He is the general's guest. We did not dare to stop him, nor did we dare to ask where he went." Hearing these answers, the commanders of the Imperial Guards were filled with regret. The Imperial tutor's expression was even more gloomy. His eyes shone with a cold light as he sneered. "He escaped before we surrounded this place? Humph. That traitor indeed has ulterior motives and is plotting against us." After saying that, the Imperial tutor gave orders to the divine kings and Imperial Guard commanders. Long Tian has sensed that something is wrong and has escaped. However, I have already ordered the Grotto Heaven's entrance to be closed. He can't escape. Let's go and capture him now. We will catch him soon. The divine kings and close to 1,000 Imperial Guards quickly gathered. After forming a team, they followed the Imperial tutor into the sky and rushed towards the Grotto Heaven's entrance. At the same time, the Imperial tutor sent out a few jade slips to continue to mobilize his troops. He wanted to mobilize more than 10,000 Imperial Guards and 10 high-level divine kings to besiege Long Tian. He would not let Long Tian escape from the grand mystery Grotto Heaven. He had to kill him in the Grotto Heaven. Swoosh! Swoosh! The Imperial tutor and the 1,000 Imperial Guards came and left in a hurry. Soon, they disappeared into the sky. The guards and soldiers of the Soaring Dragon Palace came to their senses. They looked at each other and did not know what to do. The two deputies did not dare to delay. They quickly sent a message to Long Xiang to report the situation. Long Xiang was strolling outside the Dragon Emperor's divine palace. He was feeling uneasy. A moment ago, he seemed to have noticed a group of Imperial Guards flying across the sky 100 miles away. There seemed to be the aura of a divine king in his Soaring Dragon Palace. He was puzzled and wanted to rush back to see what was going on. At this moment, a jade slip flew from the sky and landed in front of him. When he read the message in the jade slip, his expression changed drastically. He rushed into the Dragon Emperor's divine palace without hesitation and rushed to the Dragon Emperor's study. Bam! The heavy door of the study was pushed open by Long Xiang. He did not care about offending the Dragon Emperor's dignity. He rushed in without reporting and shouted anxiously, "Your Majesty, something big is going to happen. The Imperial tutor has gathered more than 1,000 Imperial Guards and more than 30 divine kings. They have surrounded my residence and are going to besiege Senior Long Tian." Darknorth was still sitting on the armchair. He was frowning and pondering if he should meet Long Tian. If they met, how should they talk? If Long Tian wanted to harm him, how could he protect himself? If Long Tian wanted to take back the Dragon Emperor's throne, could he give it up? Suddenly, he heard Long Xiang shout. He was immediately awakened and stood up. "What did you say?" "The Imperial tutor has surrounded your residence and is going to besiege Long Tian?" "Yes." Long Xiang quickly nodded and explained, "But Senior Long Tian has already left my residence. The Imperial tutor has led his troops to chase after him." Darknorth frowned and shouted anxiously, "How can the Imperial tutor be so reckless?" Long Tian's intentions are still unclear. If he hastily besiege him, it will definitely lead to a disaster. Everyone knew that Long Tian had not stated his intentions. If the Imperial tutor hastily attacked him, it would be self-defeating and they would become enemies for no reason. With the current strength of the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace, the consequences of fighting with the Divine King would be unimaginable. Even if the Heavenly Dragon Divine Palace won, the consequences would be tragic. Dark North quickly gathered his guards and rushed out of the study with Long Xiang. He wanted to stop the Imperial tutor personally,